Welcome to the Mostly Pottered at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 33 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. You scream, I scream, we all scream for more Scream. Join us as we dive into part one of the Scream franchise in preparation of the release of Scream 6 on March 10th, right?
Yes.
March 10th?
Yep.
How meta can we get?
Yes, these movies get more and more meta as they go.
That is a fact. This week we're doing the first three, Scream 1, Scream 2, Scream 3, which are kind of their own self-contained trilogy. I haven't seen any of the newer ones. I'm assuming that they take place later on and their own trilogy.
Kinda. I'm going to call it a pseudo trilogy because it was 11 years between Scream 3 and Scream 4, 11 years between 4 and 5, and 1 year between 5 and 6.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
Yes. Yeah. I thought I had seen all three of these movies before, but as I watched Scream 3, I realized I had never seen it before. So I did watch Scream 1 and Scream 2 multiple times. But apparently I've never seen Scream 3, even though I thought I did. So anyway, we will start with the first Scream that came out in 1996.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
And it shows. It really does.
Very much so, yes.
But I'll let you do the recap for that one, buddy. That's all you.
Yep. So, I mean, I think we all know the premise of Scream at this point in time. You know, we're 27, 28 years since it came out. And as Salem pointed out, it is very 90s. It 100% 90s, you know. So we start off with Drew Barrymore, and you know, the movie posters kind of lie to you in a way, right? It's just a good episode idea of movie posters that lie, box art that lies. Is she's on the cover of the poster?
Well, I mean, she's technically in the movie.
Yes.
At least there's that. I mean, there are, movie posters that deliberately show things that do not happen.
Like Mark Hamill in the Guyver costume, yes.
Well, yeah. Chopping mall with robot hand with 5 fingers holding a bag of body parts with none of those things even exist in the films.
Yes. So anyway, we meet Drew Barrymore. She is kind of preparing to make popcorn, which is like, I'd say the Jiffy Pop on the stove, which I've never personally done. I don't.
I haven't either. You know what? And I was watching it. I was like, you know what? I really want to try that now. I want to see what it's like to cook it on the stove. I feel like
seems odd.
I've only ever cooked it in the microwave or with one of those air poppers. I've never done like the little stove pan Jiffy Pop with the tin foil top.
Just to use a pot and put the popcorn kernels into that and the stovetop, but never the Jiffy Pop. That must have been a rich person thing in the 90s. Because I didn't do it, you didn't do it.
No, I didn't do it. Yeah, I had a friend of mine that was just like, well, just put some oil in a frying pan. Just put the I'm like, what? What are you talking about? It's going to pop everywhere. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. I didn't understand that process. Yeah, I didn't again, air popper thing, I get that whole thing. It's like its purpose, but yeah, I don't know about the whole throw it in a pan thing.
Yes. So anyway, here's how old this movie is. She gets a phone call on her landline.
Well, okay. I was bringing this up. I made a note of it. Like, it's like a strange thing for anyone to have a cell phone at this point in time. Like, just because one of the characters has a cell phone, they are immediately suspicious because they have one. It's like that's how out of place they are at the time.
You can't call it cell phone. Cellular telephone is.
Oh yeah, that's right. They don't say cell phone because it wasn't old enough to have a shortened name yet. So still the full name.
Like wow, that really ages the movie. So anyway, she gets a phone call, and who am I speaking to? And we get the iconic. We call him, or he's known as the Voice, right? In the entire franchise, it's the same guy doing the voice, despite it being different people throughout the movies. So anyway, he just kind of get to know her, saying, what are you doing? What's that noise? Oh, I'm watching, making popcorn and watch a movie. Oh, what kind of movie? A scary movie. Oh crap! What did she say it was? Do you remember what she said it was?
She didn't say what it was.
Oh, she said it. Okay.
No, she didn't say. So, she didn't I don't think he asked what kind. He asked what your favorite is.
Yeah,
but he didn't ask what this one they're watching is, and she didn't say either.
Right. So they just kind of do a little cat and mouse. First, it's playful and innocent. Then if you don't answer these questions, you're gonna die. And was it crap? What was her name? It wasn't Cece. It was
Cece's in the second one.
Yeah, but that was her pseudonym.
Casey.
Casey, yes.
Her name is Casey, and her boyfriend's name was Steve. Yeah.
Steven. Yeah, Steve. She said she has a boyfriend, then she's like, oh, look outside, and then Steve is tied up in the back, and answer, and since she likes scary movies, do you like scary movies, or what's your favorite scary movie? That's the tagline from this. That's everywhere. And so pop quiz. She's locking all the doors, alarm set, blah blah blah. This is the typical opening kill scene where the open person's dumb and has like a billion doors in their house and never has anything locked.
Well, yeah, these houses always freak me out because they're kind of rich people houses, right?
Yeah,
wealthy people houses, and they have too many windows, man. There's always too many windows in rich people houses. I don't understand it.
And like 8 doors.
So many windows. Yeah. So many windows. Like if anybody wanted to get in your house, they could just, kick a window open and they're in your house. Like you have.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't get it.
But I mean, yeah, don't set the alarm. So I will, starts asking questions, who was the killer in Nightmare on Elm Street, which great reference to Wes Craven to himself and Freddy Krueger. They
were talking about those, but the question that he asked was not about that.
It wasn't him?
No, the warm up question was who was the killer's name in Halloween. So she said that was her favorite movie.
Yes, Michael Myers. And then
the second one is who is the killer in Friday the 13th.
The original the Friday the 13th.
Well, here's the thing. He didn't actually finish the sentence. She started screaming the answer before he completed the whole thing. So because she did that, he could either, trick her either way.
Yes.
The correct answer should have been which one.
Correct. But I will say this movie probably made people realize that it wasn't Jason Voorhees in the first Friday the 13th. Most people probably didn't all realize that all the time. It's just kind of synonymous that we forget that it's Pamela Voorhees that is the killer in the original Friday the 13th.
Okay, to be fair, anyone that would care about the meta bullshit in Scream already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
To be
correct, but the average moviegoer that doesn't care,
sure,
probably the 15-year-old. I was 12, so maybe I might not have known that.
96, you're 12.
Yeah. So I might not have known that at that point in time, or realized and recalled all that information. But yeah, so she gets it wrong because she says it's Jason fucking Voorhees. No, wrong. It's Mrs. Voorhees. Jason comes in the second one. So Steve gets gutted. And
okay, now that is the fastest gutting I have ever seen. It happens in like less than 5 seconds, and his entire abdominal cavity has been carved out and is slopped on the ground next to him. I mean, like that is amazing fast.
From groin to sternum.
Yeah, exactly. Like and just done within 5 seconds. Like it was like she hit the light switch on and then she ran around a little bit and then turned it back on again and it was done.
Yep. Yes. I'm gonna cut you like a fish.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
So yeah, he comes in, she did a little cat and mouse throughout that. She kind of throws stuff at him and doesn't do the smart thing. This is where everyone screams, you should be getting out of the house, you're an idiot. And then she does make it out of the house, then she gets stabbed, and while I think the parents call, or she calls the parents, she still has the phone, the portable phone with her, which I don't know how the hell it's working that far away from a house, because they address that in number 2.
Well, I mean, it depends. They did say they were in the middle of nowhere. If you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have anything interfering with it, and you have like back in those days, like a high
long range,
whatever, whatever they have, it's fine. They didn't go that far from the house. She was only like 10 feet from the
house.
Yeah. But anyway, no, she didn't go. She was on the phone with them. She tried to call the police, but it failed. But the line was still open. So when the parents got home and they tried to call the police because they saw the house in disarray, they heard her on the phone because it was on the line. And,
same line, which I'm surprised.
That's how landlines worked for all you people that don't understand landlines. If you have one landline to your house and you have 4 phones, there's only one line. So if somebody's talking on a phone and you pick up one of the other phones, you will be in that same conversation, like a 3-way call.
Yeah. So essentially the house is catching fire because that Jiffy Pop, stayed on the stove for too long.
Right. And it was just a straight flame.
Yeah.
Shooting up.
Yes.
That was it. Just tinfoil just catches on fire.
Yep. And the parents essentially, hear her dying, and then she gets stabbed in the face, and then we get scream. Yep. And then we cut to Sydney Prescott, and she's on her computer because it's the 90s. Her dad comes in saying, "Hey, I'm going away on a trip." And not that part, sorry. And then there's a knock on the window, and then Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, comes in, and they're talking about all this stuff that, they may be 17 or 18. They've been dating for like a couple of years, and they haven't had sex yet. It's like, I was just watching a movie, it made me think of you. It was, what was the movie? Whatever it was.
Well, it was a movie. He remembered that when they first started dating, their relationship was more of an R rating, hot and heavy, with a lot of making out. And then lately, it's been like our relationship censored for TV.
Right. Yep. We just got scheduled for PG-13, and she shows him hit. I'm like, what PG-13 movies have boobs in them? And not that I'm aware of.
She's just trying to be playful. Okay. So she just being.
No. Airplane in the 70s was PG and had nudity, but
maybe that's what she was going for.
Yeah, but she had screamed, and she had this weird thing where she's able to open up her closet door into her bedroom door and have it not be able to open, which seemed like a poor design in architecture at that point in time.
Oh, that worked. I mean,
to the point.
When I was a kid, I didn't have a lock on my door, so I used a 2x4.
There you go.
I had my dresser, like, right where, because the door would open, and I'd had the dresser like right where the door would, open to. And then when I'd close my door, and I would put a 2x4 in between the door and the dresser so you couldn't open the door.
There you go.
So yeah, that's a normal thing that high school kids do. Well, in my world anyway.
Yeah.
The 90s world where I came from.
I was in the 90s world too.
You weren't in high school in the 90s.
Correct. So her dad tries to open the door. He gets stuck. He's like, "Hey, I'm going out of town. I'll be at the Hilton at the airport, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So she goes, "Okay, I'll be fine." Like I said, then he's, then that's when he does it and he leaves. And then is that when the news reports then start? She turns on the news in the morning.
Well, yeah, because they go to school the next day, and then her buddy Tatum comes up, and she's asking, "Why there's all these police cars?" And Tatum's like, "You don't know?"
Yeah.
And then she tells her all
Casey
about
Becker got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're all discussing. It's been essentially a year. A year ago, her mom was murdered, and she accused Cotton Weary of it, played by Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber,
yeah. On the almost a year anniversary, the cops are kind of getting involved, saying, "Hey, it's been almost exactly a year since her mom was killed. Maybe this is related, all that jazz." And they're just kind of sitting around eating grapes from a bag for lunch.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what kids do, right?
Sure. I mean, they're all sharing that bag of grapes. Like, what are they eating?
Okay. Well, a quick aside here. Her friend Tatum is Rose McGowan.
Yes.
With blonde hair, which is
Yes.
This might be the only movie she has blonde hair in. I don't remember any other movie of her ever having blonde hair. She always had black
hair.
Yeah. So yeah, she has like blonde hair. Not only is it blonde, but it's like in braids, and she's wearing like like a half shirt, like showing up with like a belly shirt. You know what I mean? Like super 90s outfit. It's very odd seeing Rose McGowan.
I also want to point out this outfit because I noticed it because she wore it this day, and then it's Kegger. The following night, she wore the same outfit.
No, she had different bottoms on. She had a skirt on one time, and then she had pants on another time. I'm looking out,
buddy. So we are introduced to the the main set of cast. We have Gail Weathers, played by
Courtney Cox.
Courtney Cox, yeah, and who spread the rumor and theories about Maureen's death. And tried saying that Sydney lied, that she was mistaken, that it wasn't his.
Well, I don't think she blamed her. I don't think she said she lied. I think that she just said that she fingered an innocent man. Which eyewitness accounts are notoriously unreliable.
Right. So yeah, they just assume that it's innocent, but she doesn't want to talk about it, and she kind of just blames the media parade, the media circus that was around her a year ago.
Right.
So
but
they're also
the rest of the group is Billy Loomis is like her boyfriend, and her friend Tatum, who's Rose McGowan, and then Tatum's boyfriend Matthew Lillard, and then Jamie Kennedy is Randy. Yes. The nerd, I guess.
Yes,
quote unquote, call him.
He's a nerd. They call him a nerd.
Well, they call him one. He's not a real geek.
No. He just likes horror movies, which sounds familiar. And Tatum's older brother is Deputy Dewey.
Deputy Dewey. David Arquette. Yeah.
Yep. So pretty diverse, like not diverse, but like known cast nowadays, or even late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, don't forget Henry Winkler as the principal.
Yes, who does have a Fonz jacket in his principal's office.
Of course he does. But this was before Henry Winkler really made his comeback. So this was like, this was like an odd cameo for him to have at the time.
And Wes Craven played Fred, the janitor, who had the hat and Freddy Krueger sweater on.
Right. Yeah.
So, like I said, they're talking about, they're like, how do you even gut someone? And Billy or Stu's like, oh, you just go from groin to sternum. And it's like, you're talking about like, oh, you would kill someone. Didn't you used to date her? Didn't you date Casey Becker? Yeah, but I dumped her for you. Or, she dumped him. I thought you dumped me for you, blah, blah, blah. 90s high school bullshit.
Well, yeah, 90s high school, people obviously older than high school age.
Yes, and Scary Movie parodies
to have banter that's high school-ish.
Yeah, Scary Movie parodies this perfectly.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're concerned that this is kind of the same thing, and her dad's out of town, and she like, hey, do you want to stay? Tatum's like, why don't you stay at my place, so to get away from the media circus. And she's waiting for, essentially then goes to the night, and they're kind of waiting for Tatum to come pick her up, and then she gets a phone call, and it's the voice, right? And kind of the same thing starts to happen, except this time he's in the house. She starts throwing stuff at him. He gets out. She doesn't call the cops. She AOL chat rooms them, essentially, or like.
No. Okay. Spoiler alert. This is going to be one of the things I complain about. She has a deaf person teletype machine set up in her room. Okay.
Is that what that was?
That is what that is. And that's what it said. If you pause the screen and look at it, it says teletype. Please type in the number you want to call, and it'll the text will print up on the screen. Okay. Is she deaf? Is anyone in her family deaf? This is 1996. Do you know how much money it would be to have one of those in your house? And she just has it casually sitting in her room on the same computer that we saw her using a word processor on earlier. Like, this is 1996. You can't just switch back and forth like that. This is a very, very targeted piece of machinery. Did they exist? Yes, they did. But again, this is something that would only be in a deaf person's house that has to make a call and needs to see the text on the screen because they can't hear it. Obviously, this is a needed thing. They don't need it. Why does she have it? No one ever mentions it again. It's not even a plot point.
No.
Why did they bother putting it there? It's so stupid. All right, sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry, it like annoyed and I was like, why is that there? And I was waiting for it to pop up again, and it never did. They never explained why it was there.
Yeah. So, she thought, so she called typed the police. Let's go with that. And then,
she typed 911.
Yes. And the cops start showing up. The ghost face disappears. But as soon as she, he's kind of trying to get into the door, where she has the jammed open. So we had that plot device right there. And then he disappears. And then all of a sudden, Billy's at her window again. And he drops his cellular telephone.
Yeah. And again, he's immediately suspicious because he has a cellular telephone, which, I mean, to be fair, this thing is huge.
Yeah.
it's like a giant thing. And it's not quite like the car phone thing in the 80s, but it's large.
It's damn close. Yeah. So, and she gets suspicious and goes to flee. And then, so also Ghostface is being held up there. And then Deputy Dewey.
He's not a doofus.
They really yuck him up as the series.
Oh, well, yeah, of course they do. They even make fun of it in the second one where they call his Barney Fifeness fills up the room.
Ooze into the room. And so Billy gets arrested. It's me, Sid. I didn't do it. So she goes to the sheriff's department and they start typing report case. And, the lawyer's there is like, there's no crime about having a cellular telephone. You're right. We'll have to run the numbers. That could take days. Well, yeah. I mean, how many phone calls were there? So, he's over essentially in jail overnight. And Dewey and Tatum get her and take her home. She can go out the back way so she can avoid the media circus. Kenny, which is Gail's camera guy, and her go there. Is like, is there a back way out of here? Well, of course there's a back way out of the police station. There's not one entrance. Sorry. Go in the alley, and Gail Weathers is kind of saying, did you think, finger the wrong guy again, just like this time? And she just socks her in the face. And then essentially they go back to the Riley house, which is Tatum and Dewey's house, and she gets an ice pack for her hand because her hand punched in the face, because hitting people in the face hurts your hand. So at least
if you do it wrong.
Well, I don't think she did it right.
Well, I'm just saying.
She just did a cold cock swing around. So so yeah, so they're there, and all of a sudden there's a phone call. Oh, Sydney, honey, it's for you. And it's Ghostface, the voice, saying wrong guy again. And he hangs up. Dewey comes to get the phone, hello, and then kind of just cuts out because there's no answer. Next morning, she thought it was, her dad potentially calling her. The cops can't get a hold of her dad. They're, trying to call the Hilton at the airport. He's not there. And then they have the news report of Cotton Weary, all that stuff. But they end up going to school. Everyone's kind of looking at her like she's crazy. And, Stu and Tatum were like, did you hear Billy's out? How is he? Not good since he's landed him the, Candyman?
Or whatever. He just says he's fine, but he's got a broken heart.
His heart's broken. Yeah. And she walks and he immediately runs right into him. And they've got to talk. It's just, you don't understand. It's been a year. And then she kind of, there's kids running through the hall wearing the Ghostface mask because they got the costume off of a store shelf. And so there's teenagers being stupid and just running around thinking it's funny. And she runs in the bathroom and she goes into a stall and two girls come out. And they just talk about how she's just faking it. She's probably the one that did this. And, maybe she's just a whore like her mom because her mom was having an affair with Cotton and all that stuff. And
which Sydney was in denial about.
Correct. Yes. So she's in there, and then all of a sudden you see the pair of boots come down and the costume go over, and Ghostface happens to be in the exact bathroom that she's in before she got there.
Right.
Chases her out or attacks her, and she runs out and then doesn't come out again. And then, then we get the whole, Henry Winkler expelling the students, which I think is the right thing to do. If your classmates got killed and you're wearing the costume and trying to scare the person that was just attacked, that's not okay. That's not cool.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's the right move. I don't think expulsion is too extreme in this instance.
No. So then the school is suspended because of the murders, and and then they have a town curfew because it's a small enough town for all that. Have a town curfew. Not many cops. I'd say 10.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering that, like the sheriff and Dewey are like buddies,
right?
and Dewey's like the rookie, so there can't be that many.
Yeah, so all gets taken care of. Then Henry Winkler hears noise, and poor Henry Winkler gets stabbed to death. But no one knows about this yet. So they're going to throw all the cool kids and Randy will.
Hey.
I like Randy a lot. He's us. He really is.
I like Randy too. I should specify. I like Randy in this movie.
Yeah. Because he, there's the scene between Matthew Lillard and him talking about like scary movies and that like there's a very simple film. Everyone's a suspect because he's seen all the horror movies. Rightfully so. So they have a kegger at Stu's house.
To be fair, there was no keg.
That's true.
They had a fridge full of bottles of beer
and eggs.
Yes,
there's an entire shelf of open eggs.
Well, you keep your eggs in the garage fridge. Everybody knows that.
Sure. I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm like, why are the eggs in the garage?
That's not good for the beer. You don't do that.
Right.
So yeah, they have we'll call it a kegger, but there was no keg. They just got drunk off of like MGD light or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was in a brown bottle.
Yeah. So Gail goes, "Hey, we're gonna be here," and she expects to kill her again, which makes sense. She runs into Dewey, who's kind of just patrolling the area to make sure nothing happens, and they're talking about they're gonna watch a movie. Party kind of dies down a bit. They determined, do you want to watch The Evil Dead or Halloween? They chose Halloween.
The funny part is they said, okay, party's over, everybody go home. And they showed a scene where everybody leaving. And then in the very next scene, left. Yeah, in the very next scene, they're all still there. And then now they're just watching a movie. I don't understand what the point of that scene was.
And they picked Halloween, which we hear throughout the rest of the movie. I would have picked Evil Dead. But at least he had good taste. So, Tam's like, hey, I have to get more beers. And she just goes and get like 8 beers from there. And she goes there and Ghostface is there. She starts throwing bottles at him, hits him a little bit. And then she tries to escape through
the cat door.
It is a cat door, but it seems
it's
like
not even a dog door.
Door.
It's a cat door. I mean, it's a kind of sort of big cat door, but they do show a cat going through it. But because she tries to like open the garage and then like Ghostface closes it. So yeah, that's like the only way she can get out is to crawl through this cat door. Which I mean,
Now,
if you watch
she got her heads and arms and breasts out of that door, the rest of her is going to fit through it.
Right. I mean, and they show her do that like at least 3 times, and she like goes all the way through and then backs up, and then all the way through and then backs up again. I'm like, who is doing this stunt? Because this is stupid.
Right. And the wife even said her breast got out. The rest of her's getting out.
Yeah, like I mean, again, if you can get your shoulders through, you can get the rest of your body through. I mean, it's just a fact.
But he opens the garage door, and the world's most powerful garage door opener is able to carry the door and her weight to the point where she gets her neck crushed in the garage door as it goes all the way up.
And it never comes back down. Yeah, it never comes back down. It stays there.
Yes.
Which again, even in 1996, it would, if it hits something hard, it will stop at the very least. But the motor is not strong enough to break bones. It's not strong enough to crush anything. Even if it did somehow malfunction to where it didn't stop, the motor is not strong enough to hurt you. You might get stuck, but it's not going to crush your bones.
Correct.
So unless Ghostface somehow rigged up a new garage motor, which I doubt, because the garage would have opened a hell of a lot faster if that was the case without her inside of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's dead. They're talking about the rules. Like, you don't know the rules, and then Randy goes into it. Never do drugs. You can never have sex, and never say, I'll be right back. And Sue goes, hey, I'm going to need a beer. Do you want one? Yeah, get me one. And he's, I'll be right back. And he disappears. Meanwhile, Sydney's like, all this stuff bad happened. You know what? Let's do it, Billy.
Yeah. Bizarre. Yeah.
On Stu's parents' bed.
Okay. I feel uncomfortable with this scene because it's not like a romantic scene. Like they're both kind of into it. It really just feels like she wants to apologize to him and she doesn't know how. So she feels like, well, I know he really wants to have sex with me. I guess I'll just give that to him. Like it really feels like a coercion like thing. It does not feel right. It does not. No. Like I don't really like that. It's very uncomfortable. And thankfully, they don't like show like a real sex scene or anything. But I mean, they show it long enough where you're like, come on.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt very bad for her.
Yes. So essentially, they do it. And she goes, it'd be really funny is if you called me if your one phone call. I didn't. Also, he got a southern accent. I didn't kill nobody. I'm like, where did the southern accent come from?
I didn't kill nobody. Maybe he was watching like a Henry Lee Lucas documentary or something.
I don't know. Like his voice was so different in that delivery of the line. It bothers me to this day.
The whole scene bothers me.
Yeah.
It's like, you like essentially have sex with him as like, penance for like, potentially calling him a suspect, which again, of course there's a reason to call him a suspect. Like, once the guy disappeared, like you appeared with the cell phone in your pocket.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's odd. Again, but I mean, they cleared him and I, totally understand.
Yep.
I get
it's honoring him. Yep.
Right. But like, you don't think about that until after you're done, like giving him this weird penance sex that you give him.
Yeah.
Like you had like all day to think about this.
Yeah. So anyway, we have stuff where Dewey and Gail go investigate a thing. They kind of almost get run off the road because they get a phone call saying the principal's been found dead hanging from the goalpost on the football field. Everyone's like, yeah, we're all going to leave and go stare at the dead body. So everyone else leaves the party except Randy, who's now drunk getting into, the Halloween movie. And then Ghostface appears after they have sex, stabs Billy a few times, and she escapes, kind of goes, out the window and falls onto the boat. And it barely damaged her. Yeah, I'm like, okay, that boat's made of nothing. Because there's a lot of mechanical stuff in the boat. Yeah,
right. But I mean, she landed on a boat like that had a cover on it. So like, she landed on something that would have hurt or broke her bone or something.
Oh, yeah. But she looks up at the window. He's not there. she kind of goes to Kenny, who they planted a video camera which has a 30-second delay on it. So they're all kids are all leaving. They almost get run over, Gail and Dewey. They find the dad's car there, and they have a little fun with each other there. They go back. Kenny's watching it. They see everyone leave. They see Ghostface behind Randy before he goes upstairs and stabs Billy. Sydney goes out there and see that, like, oh, get out of there. And he's like, oh, it's a 30-second delay. He turns around and gets his neck slashed open. Poor Kenny, we hardly knew thee. So, she's trying to escape. She gets into a car that has lock on it. Then the Ghostface has a key, starts opening the door randomly, and tries to get her. She hits him with like a cell phone that's in the car.
I don't know.
Car phone, something like that. Yeah. And she goes up, and then she runs into both Randy and Stu. Like, oh, come on! It's not me, it's him. No, it's him. They're all pointing fingers, and she goes, "Fuck you both," and closes the door. And then Billy comes down. She gets a gun, right? Yeah, she gets a gun. She has a gun.
Not yet. Like what? Because eventually what happens is like,
oh yeah, that's right.
She opens the door back up again. Randy runs in, and then Stu has the gun.
Oh, it's not that point. No, Dewey has a gun. She goes back to the house, and he's stabbed in the back. She takes his gun, and then they appear.
Right.
So she gets the gun from Dewey. Then she locks him out of the house. Billy comes down. She gives him the gun. It's like, okay. And then they open the door, and it's just Randy.
Yeah.
He's gone crazy. We all go a little crazy sometimes, and shoots Randy in like the collarbone, his right side collarbone. And he licks his shirt. He's like, it's a high fructose corn syrup, just like they use for pig's blood and carry.
Yeah, Randy doesn't lick his shirt. Billy does.
No, Billy does. Yes.
Right.
And then she tries to leave, and there's Stu, and he has, surprise, Sydney, into the voice changer. They go and corner her in the kitchen, saying this is the plan that we killed your mother a year ago because she slept with Sydney's mother slept with Billy's dad, causing his mom to leave.
Right. Yeah, and then Matthew Lillard is just like his friend.
Yeah,
so he decided to go along with it. Right. Yeah, that's
right.
That's his whole motivation.
And he's like, you guys are gonna get with it, or we're not gonna get with it. We're gonna be the survivors. Poor Sydney went crazy and killed one. We survived. So they like, all right, they're gonna stab each other to make sure they look like they got hurt. They had this all planned out. Stu gets stabbed first, pretty deep, and then Billy gets stabbed. And then he stabs Stu like 3 more times. And like, this is probably Matthew Lillard's best acting. He's like, I'm dying here, man. It's enough. So while they're arguing with each other, Sydney kind of escapes. And then she is able to call, and they answer the phone, and it's her. Now you call the cops. The cops are on their way. You guys are in trouble. Hands the phone to Matthew Lillard's like, my mom and dad would be so mad at me. So Stu's kind of going through the house, and he opens the closet door, and then he gets stabbed twice with the end of an umbrella, which is a pretty damn sharp umbrella to be able to do that.
I mean, it just takes a lot of force to do it. I mean,
yeah. So then he reveals it to be her, and then so she kind of knocks him out. Stu chases her after getting stabbed multiple times and profusely bleeding everywhere. He's like, I had sting for you, Sid. And she kind of knocks him with the plant and drops a TV on his head. Billy wakes up, attacks her, and then Gail happens to be there because she tried shooting him earlier, but the safety was on. She gets knocked out, and she drops out the picture. Then she comes back, shoots Billy once. So Randy's wounded but alive. He always yells, the killer always comes back for one last scare. Billy gets up and then Sidney shoots him in the head. Police arrive and we see that Dewey is alive and is taken away, and then Gale kind of reports the news. End of movie.
Yep.
So, I know I didn't see this in theaters. I think you said you did, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw Scream 1 and Scream 2 in theaters.
Okay.
I know for a fact I saw Scream 2 in theaters. I'm pretty sure I saw Scream 1 in theaters, not 100%.
Yeah. So, my first thoughts on this is, I think by the time this Scream 2 was out, this was already into horror movies. I definitely don't think I saw this when it initially came out. So I probably saw it 97, 98. By the time Scream 2 came out. And I didn't know, like I said, I was getting into horror, but, my first thought was New Nightmare by Wes Craven was his storyline, his testing ground for meta horror movies. Because this movie was originally supposed to be like a parody, and it ended up being its own thing. He reinvigorated the slasher genre, essentially. And I thought it was pretty good. It's, for Wes Craven, there was no supernatural element of it. There was just people. So it went back to his, like he did in the 70s, where it's just people doing bad stuff versus supernatural forces that he did later on in the 80s. I agree. I mean, I think he did reinvigorate the slasher movies with Scream, even though he wasn't trying to. He ended up doing that, and I think it worked out really well. Do you remember your first thoughts when you saw this?
I mean, I was really into horror at this point in time. I think my falling out in horror was like very early 2000s.
So right before Scream 3.
yeah. It was like very early 2000s when I fell out of it. Scream 1 and Scream 2, when they came out, I was like very heavy into it. I was very excited to watch these movies because I saw the trailers, when they're talking about the rules of horror movies, and it's like I saw enough horror movies to like know what the rules were. I was very, very excited and into it at the time. But I watched it, and at that time, I remember the movie being great. Like I was like, this is fantastic. Like this is a great movie. I thought the same thing watching 2, which will change. I'll get into that later. But
I mean, but you knew Wes Craven at this point in time, so did that help knowing that it was by Wes Craven?
I mean, I knew who he was. I wasn't a huge fan of his. I mean, like I liked the stuff he did before, but I wasn't like, automatically thinking it was going to be good because he was a part of it.
Okay.
Like I was at that time. I was more into like Clive Barker. If Clive Barker's name was on it, I was like, oh, that's going to be fantastic. But
that one came out around this time by Clive Barker. I think it's Hellraiser 4 timeline.
Again, I was okay with Hellraiser. Again, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, those movies are like Cronenberg. I like that. Like him. I like those are. I mean, those are the ones I was into at that time. But yeah, I mean, Wes Craven. Again, I'm not going to say I disliked him, but it wasn't a big selling point.
I mean, so probably in comparison to Clive and Cronenberg, these movies are pretty tame.
Right.
Not a lot of gore. Definitely no body horror. Just stabbings and shootings. Basic stuff. And nothing out like crazy, I would say.
No, the one thing that really does annoy me about these movies, though, is that every single attack has to be a confrontation and a fight.
Yes.
Every single one. There's no such thing as like a person getting snuck up on and just stabbed and died. Like there always has to be some kind of fight back every single time.
Yes.
It's annoying. It's like predictable to the point of like nauseating.
Yeah. That's fair.
And if you ever find a person dead and you didn't see like the big drawn out fight, that means they're still alive.
Correct.
Every time.
You don't see no off-screen deaths occur.
Right. Well, yeah, again, like in this movie, like Billy gets stabbed and then they immediately move on and he doesn't fight back at all, right?
Yeah.
And what happens? He's not dead.
Yep.
Like that's how it works every single time in these movies. If the person is going to die, there's at least a fight situation. where they like, something gets smashed on Ghostface's head, or he gets tripped or falls down, chasing them, or he punches them, or whatever it is. There's always some kind of fight or interaction. There's never just like people get stabbed in the back and die. Never.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's go into the highlights though. So I'm not afraid to admit this. There's something, and it's before what Culture Horror pointed out, but on my rewatches of these a couple years ago, when we get first introduced to, when they start getting hot heavy at the very beginning of the movie between Billy and Sydney, is we have a slow acoustic version of Don't Fear the Reaper playing. I didn't notice that for probably 20 years.
Oh, no, yeah, it's always the kind of thing like, I know that song. Like,
right.
I know the lyrics, and I was like, oh, like after a little bit, I understood it.
So they clearly showed that Billy was a killer by playing the song Don't Fear the Reaper. But they did a slow version. I mean, I think there's a good hint.
I mean, maybe. It's just a song. I mean, what do horror movies of the 90s and 2000s do? They take classic songs and they do rocky, punky versions of them.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And that's what this was.
That's fair.
So, like, again, it's like, what was, I Know What You Did Last Summer had what Cinnamon Girl.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they just take classic songs and they just, do a modern band covering them, and they throw it in the horror movie, whether it fits or not.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't think it really.
Which we got 2 Creed songs in Halloween H2O.
Well, there was also a bunch of Creed songs in was it 2?
3.
2 and 3. Yeah, no, 3. 3 was the one with the posters and everything.
Yes. But no, I mean, highlights. I mean, we had a lot of good and known people in this. And I think overall, for it being supposed to be a parody, I think this was the right amount of meta just by the fact of Randy. I think Randy was kind of the highlight of this movie because he's like us in this movie, as far as the love of horror movies go. He even talks about in number 2, The Dorm That Dripped Blood, which we did a review on.
Yeah, well, again, they're just throwing out names. It's like they're trying to get cred by just throwing out names. And then, again, he does that with a long list of movies to try to show, oh, look, I have street cred because I know the names of these movies.
Yeah. What are your highlights?
Highlights is I just like, again, just seeing some of these people before they got big, or at least in different roles they normally play. Like, again, like Rose McGowan playing like the kind of what kind of bubbly, sexually active friend.
Yeah,
is a very out of character Rose McGowan role, and it's hilarious. Again, seeing Henry Winkler, this is again before he really made his cameo comeback. Like, this is obviously before Arrested Development. This is before all of the things that made him. Now he's big again, and rightfully so. He's great.
Yeah.
But like at this time, he was still kind of like low key, right? So it was
he was still the Fonz,
right? Well, not necessarily. I mean, maybe he was in stuff, but not a lot. He was like this Henry Winkler in this movie is like John Travolta before Pulp Fiction. Like, he was technically still there, but he was not doing anything of any substance.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, it's just. I mean, again, this is Matthew Lillard before. I thought this is probably the movie that made Matthew Lillard big, right? I mean, he did a lot of horror movies after this, but I think this was the first one.
Yep.
I mean, Skeet Ulrich. I mean, seeing him in anything is always amusing to me, but. He was in Jericho. I did like Jericho. So, did you ever watch Jericho?
No.
The show. That's pretty good.
But I also enjoyed seeing Courtney Cox out of the Friends character, like outside of it.
Yeah. I mean, seeing her as a totally different character than her Friends
She's
character.
a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, she's a confident woman that takes what she wants. You don't have to call her a bitch. That's too simplist. Too simplistic, yes. I think. I mean, she has terrible hair. She has terrible hair in this movie. So does Nev Campbell. No, the second one is not bad. Second one, that's one of the things I want to talk about. But Nev Campbell's hair is bad in this movie. Those bangs are atrocious. I mean, I think it's just the style. It's just the style at that time period. It reminds me of high school, because 96 was like my senior year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remembering the style of this, like, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty true too. That was about what it was.
Yeah. Low points for me, as we touched on this, are some of the absurdities of the damage people are to take, like the garage door. Huge low point. And her falling off a roof onto a boat. And this is not like a big boat. This is like a speedboat. So you know that she landed right in the middle, and it's act like she fell on a bunch of empty boxes. And right where she landed is going to be where the console is for the boat. Because you don't sit at the front of the boat. You have a big open spot, and then where you steer from is kind of in the middle.
Yeah, she would have broke something or been in some extreme pain. Yes. She fell like 2 stories onto this boat.
Yes, and then rolled off onto the driveway.
And then saw the dead body, screamed, and ran. There was no stopping.
Yeah, those are my low points. Just there's some liberties on the amount of damage people were able to take and stuff that really should have injured them a lot.
Well, again, this is the start down the road of horror movies annoying me to the point where I had to abandon the genre. But this I still was enjoying them at this point in time. I'm just saying this, I think, is the road leading to it.
You think it's the catalyst?
I think so. I think this movie specifically is the catalyst. This movie, it's good. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying this movie is, I think, what led to the late 90s, early 2000s terrible, like, PG-13 horror movies. Is I think this movie specifically.
Yeah. Well, then what are your low points then?
My low points is what I was talking about before. The teletype machine. What the hell was the point of that? It was, again, a very specific piece of technology in a house and used on like a offhand camera angle. And that was it. That was it. It was just a stupid, not even a plot point. Like, but just so casually thrown in there as if everyone has a freaking teletype machine in their house. I mean, it was very, very, very annoying. Also, just, I guess I didn't notice it at the time. I guess because I wasn't as refined as I am now. But the acting is not good. It is very, very cheesy. It is very, very campy. Like, I mean, some of Billy Loomis's lines are just like horrible. I mean, the way that they're delivered, I don't think it was him intentionally doing it badly. I think it was just the way it was written. They're just stupid lines.
Now, do you think it's because this was originally meant to be a parody of slashers, therefore that bad acting was supposed to be intentional?
Well, yeah, I think the writing, I think the writing is bad because it was supposed to be parody, is supposed to be funny.
Right.
And they just like forgot the funny part and then left the writing the same. So like people are trying to seriously say this stuff and it's like jokey stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to gut you like a fish. Like, really? That's all you can think of? That's supposed to scare somebody? Like, I would not be scared. It's like the most tired thing you can say.
Yeah, those are very fair low points. So I think it's just they you're right. They intended it to be a parody and they decided partway through that it's not, and then kept everything the same for time constraints.
Right. Yeah. It's like they didn't have enough rewrites to like actually make the writing, correct for like a dramatic presentation.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're doing, because we'll discuss later in number 2 and 3, is we're doing number of stabs out of 10 because we can get meta too, right?
Sure.
I mean, I rewatch this movie probably once every 2 years. So for me, this is a really, really high rating for me. So, I mean, I really love this movie. The franchise is really good that I debated about getting Ghostface on my horror sleeve, but I stuck with 80s. If I didn't, Ghostface would have been on there for sure. I'm giving this 9 stabs out of 10. What about you?
I mean, definitely not going that high. I'll say, oh man, 6.9 stabs out of 10. It wouldn't take much to make me rewatch it, but it wouldn't be something I would rewatch just on my own.
That's fair. It just has a, like, this is probably because it's still in my head one of the first franchises I really got into, other than Evil Dead. Yeah, so I hold it in high regard.
Yeah, I was into horror since I was a kid, and I was really heavily into it in high school.
Yeah,
and like I said, this was like the heart of that. This one and the second one were like in the heart of that. And then I fell out, I think, right around the time that Scream 3 came out. What year did Scream 3 come out? It was like 2000.
2000.
Yeah. Yep. It was about right around that time.
Okay. Well, Salem, why don't you go ahead and lead us through Scream 2?
Yeah. So Scream 2 opens up where it's 1 year later, and supposedly the book was written, the movie deal was already signed, production has already gone all the way through, filming is complete, and the film has been released. All of this happened in 1 year.
Well, it's 1 year real time. They said it's 2 years in movie time. It's supposed to be 2 years later.
Okay. 2 years is still not enough time for all of those things to happen. It's way too fast. That does not happen. I mean, could you have a Hallmark movie out that quick? Sure. A Lifetime movie? Sure. Yeah, I'll believe that. Like a production like Hollywood movie? No, there's no way. Yeah. Anyway, so the movie has come out that's based on Gail Weathers' book about the Woodsboro murders, and it's being made into a movie called Stab. And we're basically introduced to 2 characters. The guy, I know him. I don't remember his name.
Omar Epps.
Yeah, I was just going to say his name was, but I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to be wrong. Anyway,
Omar Epps.
Yeah, Omar Epps, and his girlfriend is Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett.
Get your my wife's name out of your mouth. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, speaking of it, the Chris Rock thing was yesterday as of this recording. I still haven't watched it yet. I heard it was good though. Anyway, we'll get there. So they get a sneak preview ticket to go to this movie. Like, this is like, again, sneak preview before the movie actually comes out. He gets tickets. They were free. They're going to see it. Jada Pinkett is complaining that she wants to go see a Sandra Bullock movie instead of this movie. I don't know what Sandra Bullock movie would have been out at that time.
Speed? Or is that 95?
It's probably what, 9.5 weeks. Is that what that movie?
Yeah,
it's probably that.
I didn't go see Sandra Bullock movies in 1997.
I mean, I didn't either. I'm just saying. Like, the only Sandra Bullock movies I think I've watched are Speed and Demolition Man.
And The Net?
I did watch The Net, yes.
There you go.
Yeah, so unless it was one of those, I wouldn't care, but I doubt it. Anyway, they get in the theater, and I just have to say, what a nightmare this would be. Okay, they're handing out the costume of Ghostface to everyone at the door. So everyone has put on this outfit and is literally, I'm not kidding you, running up and down the aisles, screaming and yelling like, "Die, die, die! I'm gonna stab you!" Ha ha ha! Like, it's so funny, right? It's like a madhouse. Everyone just running around, screaming, throwing stuff. I was like, I would have just turned around and walked right out.
All I can say is, if we get to the point where we get to go see early screens, they better not be like that.
No, of course they're not like that. A sneak preview is for people who actually want to see the movie. This is a bunch of idiots that they trolled frat parties to give out free tickets and said we have to go right now when they're already drunk. That's what this looks like. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, so they they're sitting down, and she decides that she's gonna go get popcorn, right?
She wants
popcorn, but she makes him go get it, right? Is that what happens? Yeah, that's what happens. So he goes to get the popcorn, and he decides to take a leak while they're doing it. So she's watching the movie, and the movie is essentially the opening scene from Scream 1, with the Casey Drew Barrymore character being played by Heather Graham.
Yeah.
Who was popular at that time. I don't know what happened to her. She kind of dropped off, but she was very popular at this point in time. This was like probably like the peak of her fame anyway. So yeah, it's her playing the Casey character in the movie. Everyone is screaming like the entire time. Anytime there's any kind of activity happening on the screen, everyone is screaming and throwing stuff and trying to stab each other, still running up and down the aisles. It's a nightmare. Anyway, so yeah, guy goes to take a leak. There's like, two guys, take a leak at the urinal, so he has to go in one of the stalls. And he goes in one of the stalls. He hears the other people leave, and he hears somebody like whispering in the stall next to him. So he puts his ear up to the stall
because they're making sexy time noises.
I'm just saying, right? This is a public bathroom. Why would you put any part of your body? Why would you touch it to? That's gross.
He wants to hear the sexy time
stuff. Oh, Jesus. So he puts his ear to the stall wall to like hear what they're doing in there, and gets stabbed through the wall with the same brand knife that they had in the first movie. So he gets stabbed in the head, and he just like, dies on the floor of the bathroom. And apparently the guy takes his coat. He had like a nice leather coat. The Ghostface guy takes the coat, sits down next to Jada Pinkett. So obviously he knew who this guy was, or at least saw them come in together.
Yes.
And then goes and sits next to her in the movie. And then like, she's like, oh, why aren't you talking? What's going on? And then he just stabs her.
Multiple times.
Yeah, then she like gets up and is like screaming, and of course, because everybody's running around like idiots, so nobody can understand that she's actually being stabbed. So she gets stabbed a whole bunch of times, and they all think it's a joke. They're like, other people are like trying to stab her as it's happening because it's funny. And she eventually does this big dramatic death scene where she falls over. Yeah.
Screams. Yeah.
This big dramatic death scene in front of the screen. To where everyone gets quiet, and I really, really expected them to have a quiet moment, and then they would just clap. But they didn't. They just cut away.
Against performance. Yeah.
Yeah, they just cut away before that happens. I'm sure that probably did happen. So anyways, so we get two dead people that were killed at the premiere of Stab, by a person in the Ghostface mask that have the same exact model of knife that they had in the first movie.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to the college that Sydney is now going to with her friend Helen or Helly or something. What is her name? I thought it was. I think it's Helen.
Haley.
I know it was an H. It's one of those, but it's like they say Helly or something. I thought that was short for Helen. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Her friend starts with an H. We'll call her.
It's Hallie.
Hallie. Okay, Hallie. Yeah. Her friend Hallie. So yeah, they're like buddies, in college. And she's like having some like sorority mixer that she's trying to get Sydney to go to. And I think Sydney kind of begrudgingly accepts.
Omega Beta Zeta.
Right. So it's basically, I'm trying to think of who somebody else goes next, right? Jeez, I forgot already.
I mean, goes next.
Dies next. Isn't there three of them before?
Cece's the third one.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah.
So that's after during the party.
Yeah. So they have this party. They go to the party. Well, I think there's some like school scenes where they have like, of course, these meta talks about what sequels are better. And they give the right answer during this conversation, which the right answer being Aliens, right? Aliens, better than Alien. But yeah, what does he just say? There's no accounting for taste. That's it. There's no real answer given. There's no comments given. That's it. It's false, but that is the correct answer.
So I want to know if you catch it. So Joshua Jackson is in this because Kevin Williamson did Dawson's Creek and like Party of Five. Right, he's a writer for all that crap. So, who said the line correctly? Was it Joshua Jackson's character or was it Randy? Is it get away from her, you bitch, or stay away from her, you bitch?
Get away.
Right. Joshua Jackson says it correctly, and Randy corrects him to stay away.
Well, again, Randy is not as smart as he thinks he is.
Well, that is actually a blooper. They left it that way to show that he's actually not that smart.
Right. Right. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, that was an interesting conversation. There's a lot of other answers in there, which again are not correct answers. The correct answer to that is aliens.
And Cece's also in this class.
Yeah, Cece is in the class, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yes, and Mickey.
Timothy Olyphant, yes,
is also in this class.
Right.
Yep.
So they go to like this party, the martini party or whatever. It's like a sorority party. So when they're all at the party, the Casey scene kind of sort of plays out again with Sarah Michelle Gellar at the sorority house because she's at the sorority house by herself.
She's sober sister.
Right. She's the sober sister. So everyone else left. Like it's a house of like, I don't know how sorority. How many people you think are in a sorority house?
Let's go to Black Christmas style. So let's go with 10.
10. There's more than 10 in Black Christmas. There was 10 that stayed home from going home for Christmas, but like total?
Okay, let's go 25.
Okay, that's fair. Like 25, and like no one else is home.
Yes.
I mean, okay, whatever, that's fine. So yeah, she's sober sister. She gets a call from The Voice. It's the same kind of cat and mouse back and forth. She thinks it's her drunk boyfriend. Yeah, and it's not. And then we get the scene where she goes out the front door because she's trying to call campus security, and it does fuzz out. So like this
immediately,
right? Yeah, this cordless phone can't go that far, and I don't understand. If you are afraid for your life, why wouldn't you just run? You know where everyone is.
Yes.
You know where other people are. Why would? So she's like, oh, there's scary people inside the house. I'm going to go back in the house to try to make this phone call. Just stupid. Anyway, so yeah, she gets killed. She of course runs upstairs after she was
throws a bike at him.
Yeah, throws the bike at him. But that was like a lot of stairs. Anyway, so she goes up to like the 4th floor, I think. Yeah, and eventually basically gets thrown off of the 4th floor, and she dies. She does get stabbed a few times first.
Yes, and then Everclear gets split.
And then Everclear, yes. And so then like after that murder, it's kind of like, okay, like Ghostface is back. So David Arquette comes back, Gail Weathers comes back. So we got Sydney, we got Gail Weathers, we got Dewey, Deputy Dewey. We got her friend Haley, we got
Jerry O'Connell as her boyfriend, Derek.
Jerry O'Connell, the frat boyfriend. Timothy Olyphant is Mickey, the other friend film student.
Yes.
Who I don't know. He wasn't Kaylee's boyfriend or anything. He was just around, right? Okay. So the wife asked this too. Like, they don't seem like they'd be friends with Mickey, right?
Like, no one seems to really acknowledge him,
right?
Except my best guess is he knows Randy from film school, and my guess is he's Derek's roommate in the frat house. That's my best guess at this point.
I don't think Mickey was in a frat.
Well, he knew the frat rules.
Yeah. He knew
that's my best
guess. He knew a frat rule. Who knows? I don't know. They don't really explain what he's doing there, but he's there. And he's one of the friends, and they all hang out and laugh and giggle. So, whatever. It's like their friend group. So they're all kind of like, worried about Sydney. So they're like, all kind of keeping an eye out for her. She decides to try to keep a low profile. So she's like, staying at home or staying in like the little security police station thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're talking to her about everything that's happening. Essentially they're all trying to sort of figure out, what's going on. Anyway, so the voice starts, calling people. Who does he call first? Is it Randy or is it It's one of the three. It's Deputy Dewey, Gale Weathers, and Randy are all.
It's not Gale. It's Dewey first because Gale never gets a phone call from the voice.
Okay.
Ever.
So it's Dewey gets the call, and then eventually he decides, okay, the person calling knows us, sees us, knows what we're doing, so is in this park, in the whatever the park campus of the college
commons.
Yeah, so so they all decide that they're all going to split up and try to find people on a cell phone because this is 1997. People on cell phones are not very common.
Cellular telephone.
Cellular telephones. Yes.
I have to point out because it's not until number 30.
Sorry. The one other thing I wanted to call is that Sydney did get another call from the voice, but it was a prank call that she was able to tell it was a prank call because she had caller ID.
My goodness,
which was a separate box that you had to hook up to the phone line in between the line and the phone. Yes. I remember, and I always hated caller ID because caller ID is the thing that took away my Sega channel, and I loved my Sega channel, and I hate caller ID for that very reason. Anyway, so she has caller ID, which is the big technological breakthrough of 1997 was that the caller ID service was now available to the consumer. And it cost $15 a month. Yes. Just so you know. The same price as Sega Channel. I'm not bitter at all.
No, not at all.
So they're all, looking around. So they hand the phone.
Randy has
they hand the phone to Randy. And now Randy is talking to the person. And this is the conversation we were talking about earlier where he starts rambling off old horror movies. Talking about, sororities and, murders that happen on college campuses, blah, blah, blah. He's basically using it as an excuse to talk about all of his horror movie knowledge. I think there was also a scene right before this where him and Deputy Dewey go out for coffee. And that's where he goes
to Baskin Robbins.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Whatever it is.
It's I know this because this was the trailer for the movie. That was them discussing all this stuff because they name drop a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. Yeah. They name drop a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Because is it Haley? Well, no. Usually it's a white male that's a serial killer. Well, maybe she's Kim Manzar. She's bad for your teeth.
Yeah. It's basically the entire trailer is the conversation between Deputy Dewey and Randy in the Baskin Robbins, where they're discussing all the different
being a sequel,
right? Yeah, they're talking about the rules for the sequel. Right.
Yep. Right. And it could be anybody.
Right. Which I don't think they really followed those rules.
Not at all.
Right? As one, they said the body count is supposed to be higher. I don't think it was. It might have been the same or maybe even less. And then what the other rule is the kills have to be bloodier, which they weren't. They were the same as the first one. I think there was more blood in the first one.
No, I mean, there's a lot of blood later on in the movie with 2 attacks.
Yeah, but I mean, one of them, the person survives.
Yes.
So it doesn't count.
No, there's definitely more deaths in this one.
Whatever. I don't know about that.
Not many more, but there's more.
Whatever. Anyway.
But yeah, everyone's a suspect because it could be anyone. It could even be, Randy even said it could be Gale, it could be him, it could be Dewey because it's the sequel. You never know. All the rules are kind of thrown out the window.
Right. Which is the same thing he basically says in the third one. But
yes.
We'll get to that. So anyway, so he's rambling off all these horror movie trivia, quizzy stuff, and eventually he gets pulled into the Gale Weathers TV van and murdered by Ghostface. So Randy is now dead. So
they're not very. No one's really upset by it.
No, not really at all. Not really at all. Yeah, they're running around trying to we can't find anybody on the phone. Doesn't look like we caught the person. They come back. Oh no, Randy's dead. Anyway, so then they go on to the next scene where they're all sitting around talking oh yeah, we have to watch out what's going on. So what should we do? And then did she tries to break up with her boyfriend because she doesn't trust that her boyfriend wouldn't attack her or something.
Well, because he gets attacked after he goes after Ghostface, because she gets kind of attacked after going to Cece's sorority house, and he gets cut in the arm, and conveniently, no major arteries were hit.
And he's a pre-med student, so they say like that might have been on purpose because he's a medical student, so he knows where he could have got stabbed to show a lot of blood, but no real damage was done.
And I don't blame her for being worried if Ghostface appears. The last time it was her boyfriend.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It just felt like, as weird as it felt with Billy, it feels weird with him too. I don't know. It's very odd. Anyway,
yeah, but she's going to be taken to a safe house by, one potential Kevin Costner. Which one's Kevin Costner? Blah blah blah. She's essentially being escorted around by two detectives.
Right.
But yeah, she sends Jerry Connell away to protect him and herself.
Right. Yeah, and then he comes back and sings her a song, and like gives her his Greek letters, which I guess is against the frat rules. I don't know.
And I gotta say that the Greek letters look very much like a lady's piece of jewelry.
Sure. I don't know. I don't know what this is supposed to look like.
I've never been in a frat house.
Neither have I. She does wear them in the third movie, so I mean, there's
she
that.
Does.
Yeah, there's that. I thought that was, at least they kept that, in there. Anyway, so he sings her a song, and then she I guess falls back in love with him, and then they're okay after that. Anyway, so in the meantime, Gail and Dewey figure out that Gail's cameraman was filming the whole campus while they were out looking at everybody. So if they look at the footage, maybe they'll be able to find the person who was making the calls. So they go into the film school, and of course none of the actual video editing rooms are open. So they go into a random classroom with a VCR. And they're just watching the video, and then all of a sudden one of the other TVs in the room turns on, and it's them from behind, and they look up, and Ghostface is up in the projection booth.
Yep.
So yeah, they're running around with each other. They get separated. There's a scene where Dewey's getting stabbed, but Gail can't see him because she's in behind the soundproof glass, because they're in a recording studio. So he gets stabbed, and then she turns and eventually sees him getting stabbed, but
a lot.
Yeah. Getting stabbed a lot. She manages to lock the door and get away. But Dewey, gets stabbed, and they're basically assuming that he's just down. So she gets out and kind of runs away, and then disappears for a bit. And then I think we cut back to after the police find out about Dewey getting, stabbed or whatever, they decide to they're going to move her to a safe house. Right?
Oh, this is before that.
What do you mean this is before that?
They don't find that Dewey got stabbed. It's because Randy got stabbed. They're moving her to the safe house.
Okay, well, whatever. So they decide to move her to a safe house. So her and Haley get in a cop car. The two cops are driving, and they're driving to this whatever safe location that they're bringing her to. So when they're driving, what? I don't even remember what even happens. Anyway, they crash the car because they get they pull up to a light, and then Ghostface stabs them through the window somehow. Yeah. Anyway, stabs one, the other one crashes the car, and then he gets stabbed too. Ghostface gets in the car and tries driving, and then he crashes the car too.
And impales.
And then impales the cop that was on the hood through the head. So the Ghostface is knocked out in the front seat. Sydney and Haley are in the back seat, awake, but they're trapped. It's a cop car. They can't get out because the doors won't open in the back. So the pipe that stabbed the cop in the head, knocked out a little corner of the mesh blocking the front and the back, so they have to climb out. There's this goofy long scene where she's climbing over the Ghostface person. She thinks about taking the mask off, and then she decides, I'll just do it later. And then Haley has to go through the same exact long process while Sydney is just standing there watching her, which, I mean, she has a whole minute to just take the freaking mask off.
Yes.
But she does not. So they get out. There's they're fighting back and forth, shooting back and forth. Eventually, Haley, does Haley die?
Yeah, because she goes like, I'm gonna go back to it was. He's not there. He pops out, kills Haley.
Right. Okay. And I know she runs back. And now, right before this scene happens, Jerry O'Connell is like walking, back to whatever, I don't know, his house. They don't say where he's walking, but then he gets attacked by all of his frat buddies.
Yep.
Because he gave away his Greek letters to a girl, they have to like punish him. So they like tie him up on this like kind of crucifixy thing, but it was part of the play that Sydney was in. I guess she's
because Sydney's going to be an actress.
Yeah, she's a theater major. So they kind of like put him on the thing, and they like paint frat stuff all over him, or put like beer bongs in his pants. I don't know.
They get him really, really, really drunk.
Yeah, they get him really, really, really drunk. So
that's not drunk.
Yeah, and so then they like leave him there and they go away. Anyway, so now this is the part. Okay, well, I guess I'll get into it and later on. But so Sydney comes back to the college campus, and the college campus they did say earlier, oh, there's going to be a campus lockdown tonight, so nobody go outside. And she wanders back into the campus, and after this car crash, so she goes straight back to the college. She wanders into the campus, and then she hears the music from the play that she was supposed to star in. So she just meanders on over to the theater. Goes in the theater, sees that no one is there, and instead keeps walking in, and then eventually sees her boyfriend is there. So she goes in there, and of course, Ghostface is, holding the whole thing, for her benefit. And essentially now we get the big reveal that Ghostface was Mickey, Timothy Olyphant, all along, because he was found and I guess kind of like encouraged to just be a killer by Billy Loomis's mother,
who goes by Debbie Salt, played by Laurie Metcalf,
right,
from Roseanne.
Well, yeah, Roseanne's sister in Roseanne.
Yeah.
So yeah, she plays like a reporter that's kind of sort of like, I guess, kind of sucking up to Gale Weathers, I guess, throughout the movie. Yeah, minor character before this point. Anyway, so yeah, Billy Loomis's mother found him online and encouraged him to be a killer, and then convinced him to befriend Sydney and then do this whole thing all over again, which is this whole thing. And then there's a lot of back and forths because Gale ends up showing up.
Well, before it's revealed it's Billy's mom, he says Derek, right? He's like, no, it's not, and then he ends up shooting Derek.
Well, yeah, okay.
Then it's Billy's mom,
and then it's Billy's mom. Yes. So Derek dies, but one shot, just dead. So they're all like hanging out. It's like a back and forth of them like threatening each other. Gale shows up. Gale gets shot. There's like guns go back and forth and fighting.
Cotton Weary shows up. Cotton's been throughout this movie too, every once in a while.
Well, Cotton has been promised by Gale Weathers that he's going to get an interview, like national television interview time with Sydney. Yep. And so Gale Weathers kind of ambushed her with Cotton, which Cotton was upset because he thought it was a planned out thing, and he was upset that it happened without her consent. But then later on, he confronts her in a library, and
it goes a little crazy.
Yeah, like weirdly aggressive towards her. I don't know. I don't understand that whole thing. How can you be upset that someone like didn't plan an interview and surprised you with an interview, but then later on be like so aggressive that the police have to drag you away? I don't.
It's to give the illusion that maybe it's him.
I know what they're trying. I know what they're trying to do. It's just very, very like ham-handed. Like, you know what I mean? It's just people change characters depending on what you want them to be at that time, and it's just odd. Anyway, so yeah, whatever. Go back and forth. So Mickey and Billy's mom end up dead, and then we find out that Dewey survived. So it's Sydney, Gale Weathers, and Dewey that survive.
Yes.
And it's the end of the movie.
Yep. So what are your first thoughts, and what's your review thoughts on this? I guess.
When I first saw this movie, I was very proud of myself because I predicted who the killer was. Not the second one, because you can't predict Billy's mom, because again, she was mentioned in the first movie. The only time she's ever mentioned is that she left because Sydney's mom was cheating with Billy's dad.
Yes.
But that was it. She left. So like you would assume that someone that abandoned their child because their husband cheated on them wouldn't really give a shit about him dying, or at least not to the point of getting revenge. But so that one you can't call. That one's just out of left field. But if you look, whenever anything happens, like the phone calls in the campus park, when any of the attacks happen, any of that stuff, Mickey is not there.
Correct.
Mickey just conveniently shows up later all the time. So it's very, very easy. So I called him as the killer back when they were running around in the campus looking for people. I knew that it was him because they showed everyone else during that time period except for him. So yeah, I was proud of myself that I figured that out. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's just this movie, I think, stretches it a little thin. I mean, there's a lot of things that I understand they're trying to make them like meta and funny and campy, and I think this one stretches it a bit thin for me. At the time, I remember liking this movie. Watching it again later on now, it's getting really old.
I mean, the first watch, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we see even more people that move on to other horror movie careers. Because Sarah Michelle Gellar gets into I Know You Did Last Summer. She's Buffy. She's all this. Timothy Olyphant obviously has done some horror. He's in, I think, one of a fantastic horror movie remakes, The Crazies from 2010. Jerry O'Connell did few horror movies. They weren't good, but I like Jerry O'Connell at this time because of Sliders.
Yeah, Sliders was good.
I don't know
the original multiverse.
Yeah, I don't know Haley from anything else.
No.
Cotton, yeah, I liked it. I don't think I knew I don't think when I initially saw it, I was watching it closely enough. I wasn't really thinking about that stuff at that point in time. But yeah, on the rewatches, yes, you can definitely tell who's doing what killings and when. People have entire YouTube channels that talk about who did what killings and where they're at this point in time and who is potentially going to be. So on the first watch, it's once you know the twist, on the rewatches, you kind of look for all that stuff. Again, if you didn't catch it the first time.
I mean, the first one intentionally throws you off because there's two killers. I mean, that's like impossible to predict two killers if you don't know these characters ahead of time. So of course it's like impossible to get. The one thing I did, when you finish that up, we'll go into high points.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it because this is one of those series that rarely, usually when someone survives the first one, they die at the beginning of the second one. And that's why initially was thought going to happen, because that's what franchises do. They generally move on to somebody else as the final girl. I like the fact they didn't. That it's pretty much been Alien, this, and Evil Dead. Those are the only ones that do it. So I like the fact they just kept, the continuity really stays in check. I felt like it stayed in check with Scream 2 as well. So I enjoyed the continuity that they existed. They just weren't separate things with the same killer, that there was always the lore was built on, I think, pretty well.
Yeah. I'll just kind of roll into high points, but kind of rolling off of what you said it's interesting in the continuity. And in the first movie, they kind of have, they talk about the whole Cotton Weary thing being fingered, to do the murder in the first movie, and they do show him on TV a couple times, but it's very, very minor, like a very minor character. And they do have Liv Schreiber playing that character in the first movie, even though he is barely in it.
Yeah.
and it's still him. So
Yep.
I don't know if they planned the second movie at the same time, but I mean, Liv Schreiber's a pretty big actor. I mean, at that time he wasn't huge, but he was big enough to where he's bigger than just a cameo, right?
Yeah.
Which is essentially what that was. So it was interesting that they kept that continuity of him playing the character in the second movie. That was interesting. Another high point I'll say that everybody has much better hair in this movie.
Yes, they do.
So I don't know. They kudos to whoever the hairdresser was on this film. They basically saw the nightmare that was the hair in the first movie, and they're like, yeah, we got to redo this whole thing. So yeah, Neve Campbell has much better hair. Gale Weathers has much better hair in this movie. Again, everybody's hair looks great in this movie. Whoever the hairdresser was did a fantastic bang up job.
Yeah. Those are your only highlights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my highlights.
Okay. I mean, yes, you are correct. And like I said, my highlight is the continuation, that they really planned this out, that they really paid attention to what they already established in this world and kept at it. Because such a small role, as you said, for Liev Schreiber, and for him to come back in Scream 3, like, it's rare that even when they do that, that's the same person playing the same character. Even.
Well, again, and the third one is not that shocking, because I mean, he was a decent big character in the second movie.
Yeah,
the first one, it was like essentially a cameo. Like they only showed him like twice.
Yes,
and I think he had like maybe one speaking line.
Yeah,
and that was it. If he said anything, I don't even remember if he said anything, but it was definitely him.
And the highlight for the reveal is, if you really pay attention, is the only person that Debbie Salt interacts with is Gale Weathers, because everyone else would know who she was.
No, and that's unfair, because they do show her talking to a lot of other press people.
Right.
but nobody else would have seen her.
Right. So the other people that would have known her, Randy or Sydney or Dewey, never met her entire movie. So the only person that's original from the first one that had interactions with Debbie Salt, Billy's mom, was Gale Weathers, who didn't know what she looked like.
I mean, sure, but I mean, I don't think they would have recognized her anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you can recognize,
she lost a lot of weight, chin lift, all that.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, yeah, if you look that different, you know, like how many years later, like they wouldn't remember.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like one of, I mean, I don't even know if they were friends with them. Right? Like, she was dating Billy Loomis. Do you think any of them were friends with Billy before she started dating him?
No.
Right. I mean, like, Randy didn't really seem to be that good of friends with him. They seemed to like pick on him more than anything. Because like Matthew Lillard and Billy Loomis were friends, obviously, but like, Randy just seemed to kind of like as a hanger on. He was around because he was like had a huge crush on Sydney.
Oh, he's friend zone.
Right. I mean, yeah, but that's why he was around. He wasn't friends with them. So I mean, again, I don't know if he would have ever met Billy's mom, because I mean, who knows how many years before that happened? I mean, they don't even specify when that happened.
Yeah. So
it might have happened when they were 8 years old. Are you going to remember what your friend's mom looks like when you're 8 years old?
No.
All right. So I don't think it would have mattered if they would have saw her or not. I mean, again, her explaining why she looks different at the end would have explained all that away anyway. I mean,
which there was no, yeah.
That's great that they did that. I'm just saying that I don't think there's a reason that you need to do that.
Yeah. All right. So what are your low points then?
I mean, low points is just all over the place, man. You're telling me that some guy on foot would know that they're going to drive her to a safe house and somehow know the direction that safe house is in, because they were not on the campus when he stopped that car. They were in the town. Okay. Which is how far away? How the hell would they know what direction they were going, where they were going, and how to intercept them? Nevertheless, on foot.
Yeah.
That makes zero sense. Two, they're two cops. You're just going to kill two cops with a knife on the side of the road? That's ridiculous. Again, if there was more than one person, I'll give it to you. But this is one person to one. Even if he did somehow manage to run like Usain Bolt and get there in time, he would not have the strength and the stamina to be able to take on two cops in their car. Just saying. I mean, the cops aren't necessarily the most fit people in the world, but these guys were not like schlubby cops. They were, normal looking fit cops. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, 2, why the hell would Sydney, after witnessing another murder, well, 1, she didn't even bother taking the mask off, even though she was standing there looking at him for like an entire minute. And 2, she goes back to the campus. I'm assuming there's probably a police station in the town, right?
I think so.
There's got to be at least a phone in the town. There's got to be something. I just don't. I don't understand why she would go back to the campus again on foot, without talking to anyone, without calling anyone, without attempting to get any kind of help whatsoever. She wanders back into the campus, and then not only does she wander back in, she hears music that is an obvious trap that she should definitely know is a trap, and wanders on in without any preparation or reconnaissance, nothing. Just wanders in. That is ridiculous. There's no way that any of that would happen. The whole end of this movie, to me, just falls apart.
So the whole third act.
The whole third act feels like somebody forgot to write it, and they wrote it the day before. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's all over the place.
Yeah. I can see that.
That to me, that's egregious. That is a sin that you cannot fix. There is no explanation for that.
That's fair. Yeah, I get that. Any other little points though?
Besides the entire third act and them
the third of the movie,
yeah, and them pushing the camp levels even higher than they were in the first movie. No problems at all.
Are you saying you didn't like that Deputy Dewey got his own theme song in this one, and he played it every time he was seen, and we continue to hear that theme song throughout the series?
Yeah, stupid. I mean, at least they had Red Right Hand in this movie. That's a good song.
It is a great song, and they play it. That's the unofficial theme song of Scream.
Yeah,
is Red Right Hand.
Right.
Hence the title of this episode.
Right. It's a good song. I mean, there's even covers of that song are good.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're as good as the original, but even the covers are good. That's just a great song.
Yeah. Low points for me. Yes, Jerry O'Connell's scene was abysmal.
Oh God, that was such a cringy.
It was painful.
Scene. I seriously left the room to go get a drink while it was. I just let it play. I was like, I've seen this before. I don't need to listen to this.
And honestly, the killing of Randy, I think he could have played in a bigger part in this series as a whole.
Well, I think they, again, because they're playing by sequel rules, there has to be a shock, right? There has to be a person that dies that you don't expect to die. And that was Randy. No one wanted Randy to die. No one expected Randy to die. So they killed Randy, and everyone is, oh no. So that's why they killed poor Randy.
Anyone can die now.
Yeah, I mean, they should have killed like anyone else.
Dewey was originally supposed to die.
Well, I'm not surprised by that. But instead, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, anyway, the getting stabbed in the first one gave him nerve damage to where like his one arm barely worked, and he has a really bad like limp.
Yes.
So he couldn't be a cop anymore. And amazingly, getting stabbed again in the back fixed everything. So in the third movie, he no longer has those problems.
Correct.
Although, sorry, he does limp a little bit, but his arm is totally fine now.
Yes. No, it's... Yeah, so this movie, I think this is probably why you're seeing such a problem with the third act, and this carries on into Scream 3 is the script was actually leaked. So part of the plot point in Scream 3 is what actually happened in Scream 2. So I think they scrambled to rewrite the third act.
I guess if a movie like that, if the script gets leaked, yeah, it really does ruin the movie. Because if you know who the killer is going into it, yeah. In a slasher, if you already know who the killer is, and it's not like Michael Myers, right? Everybody knows Michael Myers was a killer. They weren't ever trying to hide it. It wasn't like somebody was disguised. No, he was the killer. Right. So if you knew Michael Myers was a killer going into Halloween, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's still the same movie. But if it's like a whodunit, like, oh, it's one of the friends is doing this, like, which one is it? And you already know who it is, yeah, it ruins the movie. Right. So I can see that. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it feels like they wrote it like the night after a bender when they forgot to write the third act and like, oh no, we need something fast.
That's what happened though. Yeah. It's I blame it fully on that.
Well, again, if that happens, you call a halt, right? And you go back to the writing team and you rewrite it. I mean, just do it a different way.
Yeah. So how many stabs out of 10 do you give?
I mean, I don't hate this movie. I don't even really dislike it, but it does piss me off on several different spaces. But again, I don't hate it. It's got some shining points. I mean, this is like Neve Campbell in her prime she's great in this movie.
Yes, acting's far better in this movie.
Yeah, acting is better. I mean, everything is held together better again until the third act, and then it just all falls apart. But I'll 5. I'll give it 5 stabs out of 10.
5 stabs out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm giving it an 8. I think for it being a sequel to a horror movie being good is really, really, really rare. And I think this is probably one up there with one of the best sequels in the horror franchise.
Well, I mean, that's not saying much. I'm just saying there are sequels that are good, and I will give you that. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason that in the horror movie that's trying to be meta, talking about good sequels, they don't actually mention any horror movies. And why is that? Because sequels in horror franchises are not good. That's a rule. So if there's one that's even like halfway decent, yes, that would be a fantastic miracle in the horror world. So yeah, I will give you that Scream 2 is better than most horror sequels.
Besides Evil Dead 2 and Aliens, yes.
Well, yeah, again, I'm not saying that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Aliens is a horror movie, but it's half sci-fi, so.
And I don't think Predator 2 was better than Predator 1.
No. It was not. It was not. I like Predator 2, but I do not like it better than Predator 1. That's a fact.
It is an inferior sequel.
Correct.
So,
but it's also a sequel that really doesn't have much to do with the first one. Like, there's not even really any returning characters. There was one that they cut out.
Right.
Like, I think you can see her on the screen for like a second.
Yes.
But she doesn't actually speak. They don't even say that that's her. So.
But we know it's her.
That's correct.
Oh, and then one thing I want to point out that I'm going to throw in a little prediction here that people are saying around for Scream 6. Okay. One of the partygoers at the frat party was Matthew Lillard.
Was he?
He's in Scream 2.
Okay.
Now there's rumors about it was just him being on set. They want to throw it off, but there's a big rumor mill that Stu Macher is not dead.
Okay.
He would be back in Scream 6.
Well, here's the thing. If that's true, why the hell would he be at the same college where multiple people that know him are present and at a party that he knows they will be at and is not even in a disguise?
He had sunglasses and different hair color, all right?
It doesn't matter. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's whole things about the poster for Scream 6 because his name is different than everyone else's on the subway thing. So people think he's back. It'd be great. It'd be different.
It'd be great. It would also be stupid. It would just be angry. If they're saying that that party, that him being at the party is a canon thing, that's just ridiculous.
Now, maybe it's not, and maybe he did survive the TV to the head. Who knows?
I mean, that's possible, I guess.
It's possible.
Like, if a TV falls on you, it's not going to continually electrocute you. It's just going to break.
Correct.
Like, TVs don't shoot out sparks after they break. They're just broken.
What? No.
I know that happens a lot in movies. I'm just saying, in real life, they just pop and they're dead. They just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scream 3. Scream 3 starts off with Cotton Weary is in his car. He's stuck in traffic, and he's apparently arguing with his agent, I guess, right?
Yeah.
He's arguing with his agent, basically upset that he got a cameo in Stab 3. So they apparently skipped right over Stab 2 and are now in Stab 3 because this is the third movie, I guess.
Well, in fairness, it's been 3 years since Stab 1 came out, so that's enough time for a shitty horror movie sequel to come out.
Sure.
There's room for 5 of them in that 3-year time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, this time frame I'm not as upset with as the first time frame. But anyway, so so he's arguing with his agent that he had a cameo part in Stab 3, and he was upset that it wasn't bigger because he was like a part of it. And
he lived through the events,
right? Because he lived through the events, so he should have a bigger part. Anyway, so apparently he has somehow turned his 5 minutes of fame into significant fame, where he hosts like a show called 100% Cotton, which appears to be like a Jerry Springer, kind of like Maury Povich show.
It's a controversial talk show.
Right, yeah. So yeah, it's like a Jerry Springer show. Anyway, so he's like hosting that, and somehow he thinks he's like, kind of sort of a big movie star guy now, and he's arguing with that. Anyway, so he gets a call on the other line, and he answers his like other cell phone.
That's what you mean by other line. He literally has 2 phones in his car.
Right. Yes, he has another phone that he answers. And it's like some girl like, "Oh, hi, I'm looking for somebody." Oh, you got the wrong number. "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you really sound like Cotton Weary." And he's like, "That's because I am." There's like they flirt back and forth. So we're eventually he gets his agent off the phone so he can concentrate on flirting with this girl. And eventually he finds out that it's the voice, right? It changes into the voice, and then he starts threatening his girlfriend, basically saying, "Where's Sydney? I know you know where Sydney is. If you don't tell me where Sydney is, I'm going to kill your girlfriend." And so Cotton, instead of telling him the answer to that, just starts speeding to his girlfriend's house.
In Hollywood.
He's like stuck on the I don't know how the highways work there, but apparently it's close to where he was. Anyway, so he gets off this traffic jam that he's in, and he goes to the house. Then we cut to the house, and we see his girlfriend getting out of the shower, of course. And putting on a negligee and walking around the house. Anyway, so Ghostface pops out, chasing her around the house. Eventually chases her into the bedroom. She closes and locks the door. Ghostface can't open the door, so they start stabbing through the door, and then it just kind of cuts away. But the Ghostface is talking to her in Cotton's voice.
Right. Technology's gotten so much better. The voice changer is able to impersonate perfectly everyone's voice.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the
in 2000.
Right. Yeah. So Ghostface is speaking in Cotton's voice, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. It was a joke that went too far." And she's like, "No, like I'm not opening."
She's like, "I'm sick of your stab games."
Right.
So that he's clearly done something like this before. If she's sick of his stab games.
Right.
So I'm really confused by that part.
Well, I mean, okay. You've been in a relationship before. I mean, sick of could mean he said something about it like a week ago, and now she thinks it's a constant thing. Anyway.
Well, I mean, as a husband, I do say stupid shit to purposely get myself in trouble, so I can see him doing that. That's fair.
Well, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, but she, basically it just kind of fades out with this, like, what's going to happen in this situation. So Cotton drives his like Suburban, like 100 miles an hour down the street, gets out, runs into the apartment, runs to the bedroom door, sees all the knife marks in the door, and then, basically, tries to open the door. It's locked and try to get in. And then he's like, asking her to open the door. And he eventually breaks the door down, and she comes out swinging at him with a golf club, thinking that he was the one that tried to attack her. And even though he's like explaining to her, like, hey, no, I didn't do this. Like, calm down. Tell me what happened. And she's not believing him. So he gets kind of like knocked on the ground. And as he's like trying to talk her down, Ghostface comes out of the hallway and comes up behind her and stabs her. And he tries to tell her that it's behind her, but she, thinks that he's, again, messing with her or something. So she doesn't look. So she gets stabbed. Eventually Cotton struggles a bit, and then he gets killed as well.
Yep.
So that's the opening is that Cotton Weary gets killed because obviously the Ghostface, whoever the new Ghostface is looking for where Sidney Prescott is.
Yes.
So then we cut to Sidney Prescott, who's living in, like, I don't know, the mountains somewhere. They don't really explain where it is, but anyway, she's in a remote location that like no one knows where it is, and she's by herself, and she's just hiding out, has completely distanced herself and isolated herself from the world.
Rightfully so.
Well, yeah. So she works under a fake name. She works as like a counselor, like for like a kind of like a woman's helpline thing.
Yes.
So basically that's it. And then they kind of cut away, and they're back in, I think Gale is trying to investigate the Stab 3 set because Cotton Weary died. And because he was murdered, now there's like a story around the movie. So she goes in to try to investigate the movie, with like a camera in a bag type thing. She goes in there, she finds Dewey. Apparently they had some kind of falling out. So that even though they were kind of, they had a falling out after the first movie, they apparently had a falling out after the second movie as well.
Well, she nursed him back and helped him get back to health, and she stayed there a year. And then she's like, I can't take this.
Well, we don't find that out till later.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying that, again, they had a falling out after the first one, and now they have a falling out again because essentially she, and that's her decision. I'm not saying that she's wrong in that. I'm not saying that this is a wrong decision. She moved her, she made decisions for her career instead of, because he made it clear that he wanted to stay in Woodsboro. He wanted to be like a small town guy. And she is obviously like a kind of famous reporter. She wants to go where the money
60
and
minutes
the fame.
too.
Yeah. So she was like trying to make a real name for herself, and she had to do that right. She had to go where the jobs were. So she left. Again, I'm not saying this necessarily wrong. I'm just saying that we find out that they had a falling out, and that he is now, I don't know. I don't think they were even dating. I don't even know what that relationship was. But anyway, the movie has a movie version of Gale that's played by Parker Posey.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, like a more annoying version of Gale, I guess.
Well, anything Parker Posey does is the more annoying version of Gale.
Right. I don't know. She's been okay in some stuff. I do most of the things that she does. I will give that to you. But she's been okay in some stuff.
Yes, but Dewey is a consultant for the movie because he lived through the events, so he can tell the most accurate versions of it.
Right. And so she plays Gale, and it kind of sort of seems like they have like a relationship, but obviously not like a real relationship. I don't know. It's like, it's odd. It's an odd relationship, and I don't quite know how to describe it. Because like she's like letting him live at her house, but not actually in the house. He lives in a trailer in the driveway.
Correct.
So like obviously they're not like dating, but she always wants him around because she doesn't feel scared when he's around. It's odd. Like I said, it's an odd thing. But she also talks about like boning other guys when he's around. So it's definitely not a sexual relationship, but it's a very like weirdly codependent relationship.
But Dewey's also hung up on Gale, and this is the pseudo Gale, and she's played Gale, and this will be in the third movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of has that attractiveness to her because she's kind of also cutthroat and wants what's hers is hers, just like Gale is.
Right. And
so I think he's attracted to that type of power.
Right. Yeah. So they show like the girl playing Sydney is apparently new. They recast her for this movie. We never saw who played her in the first two.
Yes, we did. Tori Spelling was.
Oh, that's right. I did.
And Luke Wilson was Billy.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yes, Tori Spelling stopped. And so as we discussed in the second one, the replacing of the leads in the franchise happened in the Stab universe.
Right.
Of the movie universe, where Tori Spelling played Sydney for the first two, and then they recast Sydney.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that was another offhand joke, is that in the first movie, they made an offhand joke of like, who would play you in the movie? And she's like, with my luck, it would be Tori Spelling.
Yes.
And so it was.
Yes.
In the second movie. Anyway, so that's like a new girl playing Sydney. I don't think we're really introduced with anyone else.
Well, we meet Ricky, who's the Randy substitute because Randy died in the Stab universe as well, because he died. So we can only assume that he died in Stab 2. You have Tom, who plays Dewey, who Gale did a report on earlier, saying that, the car accident, he says, was drunk driving, that the tire blowout was fake. And then Jenna McCarthy was going to play the Heather Graham / Drew Barrymore in the Stab 3 movie.
Right.
Yes. And who's the producer on this movie in Stab 3?
Lance Henriksen.
Yes.
What's his name? Milton. Yeah, Mr. Milton.
Yep.
But yeah, it's Lance Henriksen.
Yes. And we're also introduced to the director, who is, I don't even remember his stupid name.
Roman?
Roland. Yes, Roland.
I think it's Roman.
Roman. Yeah, you're right. It's Roman. Who's going to be 30. Right. He had to do a horror movie first.
Right.
So, yep, that's our cast of characters.
Right. Yeah. So it's right. Yeah. So we got to introduce all those kind of people. Obviously, they're like trying to investigate to find out what's going on. They find out that at all of the murder scenes, they had left a picture. And then I believe that the picture is identified by Dewey, right? As Sydney's mother, right? Maureen Prescott. But they're like younger pictures of Maureen Prescott.
Like 18, 19.
Right. Yeah, like a young girl.
And they said they tried looking into her past, and that time frame, she just kind of disappears.
Right. Yeah, there's no record of her in that time period. She lived in Hillsborough her whole life except for that 2-year period.
Right.
Yeah. So basically that kind of ends there. They end up, she goes to Parker Posey's house to investigate again. It's basically just eavesdropping on them. I think just trying to find out more information about what's going on. And then when they're looking at that, she's looking at some of the character stills for the movie, and she recognizes the background of the picture, and they recognize that she was in the same like studio lot.
Yep.
as Maureen Prescott was. So that apparently she was in the movie lot, and these look like publicity stills from a movie. So they're like, okay, well, it looks like she was an actress, for this same studio. We need to go investigate further.
Yep. But yeah. But before that, because then Jenny McCarthy's character gets killed, and they're saying, and now they say cell phone finally in this movie,
right?
That was Dr. Dreamy or Dr. Whoever, from Grey's Anatomy, Patrick
Dempsey,
yeah, is one of the cops in this. He's saying, hey, we gotta get Sydney involved. She knows more about this, but we're gonna shut down this production because Jenny McCarthy's found dead in the offices of Stab 3. And they kind of have the wrap-up party at Parker Posey's house.
No,
the they have a kegger essentially because the movie was canceled.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just odd that there's two different parties in the movie.
Yes.
Like, and all the events happen at these two different parties. Anyway. Okay. So yeah. So they go back to the house. And it's like all the cast who are like all depressed and upset about what's going on. Anyway, and basically they're going over the scripts and they're talking about how there was 3 different scripts because they didn't want it to get leaked which one was the real ending.
Well, they don't know, and they figure out that the people that are getting killed are the order that people get killed in the movie.
Right. So
and they're like, who's next?
Right. Yeah. So Jenny McCarthy died second in the movie. She died second, and all 3 scripts have those 2 deaths first. Right. But the third death is different in all 3 scripts.
Because one could potentially be Gale Weathers.
Correct. Yeah. So they don't. Right. Yeah. Gale Weathers is one of them, and I don't know who the other ones are. I'm assuming it's all those other characters, but so they're all worried about that, and then that immediately goes out the window because the next person to die is the bodyguard. Who's Patrick Warburton? Yeah. Patrick Warburton. Yeah,
is Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, is Patrick Warburton the bodyguard who we're introduced to for like a scene before he gets killed. So like again, the whole he's killing in the order of the script immediately goes out the window right after they say it. So Patrick Warburton gets killed. They realize that they're getting like stalked in the house. And then they at the end they're like all looking at this script because they're getting faxes from Ghostface, who's
world's fastest faxes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, he's getting they're getting faxed from Ghostface, who's like giving them one line at a time in each fax.
He's rewriting the movie.
Yeah, he's rewriting the script. And so he's saying like the next person to die everyone will die except for one person who I'll give mercy to. And the person I give mercy to is the person who says, I smell gas.
Yes.
And then an explosion happens and they all survive.
Except Tom.
Well, okay. Except Tom. So, yeah. So immediately, again, he kills out of order the script and then doesn't even follow his own rules when he kills people from the script. Anyway, so the explosion happens. Everybody gets like separated. So yeah, Dewey falls down the hill, he hears 2 Gales calling for help and he has to make a choice whether he's going for the original Gale or the new Gale. And he chooses the original Gale. Yes. So he goes to the original Gale. Fake Gale ends up coming out of the woods, and so does the new Sydney. She comes out of the woods. Yeah, just like, you came off from a different direction. It's like, you guys just.
Oh my God, Tom was in the house.
Right, but like, you guys just survived an explosion. Why are you worried about what direction she flew into?
Well, because Ghostface was shot multiple times, went under the van, who then left a photo. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he got shot and then had enough time to pull out a photo, fold it up, and put it on the ground where he landed.
Well, and then it said, I killed her.
Yeah, right. Written on the back of the picture, it says, I killed her. So now they're all like, oh, I thought Billy Loomis and Matthew Lillard.
Mocker. Yeah.
Stu, whatever.
Mocker.
Whatever. So I thought that, they were the killers. Oh, this is interesting. We got to look further into this. So nobody really gives a shit.
This is when Dewey calls Sydney.
Well, yeah, when they go back to the police station to do interviews, he tries calling her and he can't get through, and he's leaving her a message, and then she shows up at the front door of the police station as he does that. So now she's involved, and they're all like interviewing, to get more information, stuff like that. Sydney, what does she do at this? I know she stays and like in the police station most of the time.
Well, she wants. Okay, so yeah, she goes there. The killer has my number. We have the whole thing. Like, do you have a number in your memory? And Dewey's like, and then like in your cell phone memory. Oh yeah, the only people I let use the phone were detective and Gale. But 50 minutes into the movie, we finally have Sydney come out of the mountains into the plot.
Right. Yeah.
50 minutes.
Right. And then she's kind of like on the side for a while after this too.
Yes. So essentially what happens is that they go, hey, these are here. She wants to learn more about my mother. I don't know about this mother. This happened 2 years before my parents met. Blah, 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 blah. She's like, I want to see what these photos were taken. So Dewey takes her to see where all these photos were taken, while Gale and fake Gale break into the archivist area.
Right.
Where they meet the not Carrie Fisher.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how they convinced her to be in this movie. Oh, and there's also the stupid fucking cameo of Jay and Silent Bob.
Okay. So that you just answer your own question.
I answered my own. I didn't ask a question.
You don't know how they got her. They got her because she was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and they were there on the set because where they were in Hollywood trying to stop the movie, this is the set they're walking through. So these movies were filmed at the same time.
Well,
that's why Jay and Silent Bob
like
have
I said,
a cameo.
I'm guessing they were on the same lot is how they got it. Yeah.
This is exactly why she's there. This is exactly why Jay and Silent Bob there. So Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in the View Askew universe is now officially canon in the Scream universe because of this movie.
Wah, wah.
Yes. Hey, it's Connie fucking Chung.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, they go in there, and of course, Carrie Fisher knows who her name is. What was it, like Rena Reynolds or something? Was her name, and they find out that she only starred in 3 movies. They were all produced by Lance Hendrickson, the same guy who produced the Stab movies.
Yes, like Teenage Zombies from Outer Space or something like those B-grade horror
movies. Right, they're really, really bad ones. So essentially now their new suspect is John Milton because, he knew her before. So obviously something's going to happening now.
Yes.
So they've essentially, bring Sydney back to the police station.
Yep.
And then they go, where do they go in the meantime? I know they go somewhere. Dewey and Gale go somewhere. And then they go or maybe I don't know.
It's Roman's 30th birthday.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, but they were going back to the police station. I don't remember where they went to where they were heading back to the police station, and then they got a phone call.
Yes.
From Sydney saying that she's going to this party.
Correct.
Oh wait, no, maybe I think they were driving to. No, they went and talked to Milton, didn't they? Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yes, they went to talk to Milton. They confronted him. They're like, Rena Reynolds. I know. I worked with many actors. We never said she was an actor. And they found out that it is Roman's 30th birthday. Don't cut the cake without him. So he's going to the party. And then, so they're going to investigate and try to find more information about Rena Reynolds. And that's when they get the phone call from Sydney saying, hey, come to the party.
Well, Milton also told them what happened. Like he said that he threw crazy parties back then, and it was the age of women were being used or whatever, and she knew what she was in for when she came to that party. But things happened at that party, and then she left.
A lot of cocaine, a lot of drugs, a lot of rapes.
Right,
unfortunately,
right.
They essentially, which is funny because this is Dimension in Miramax. They essentially laid out the Harvey Weinstein scenario without it, and Harvey Weinstein was part of this company at this time too.
Right.
So Milton was the Harvey Weinstein of this movie, not knowingly back then.
Right. So he tells them what's going on, or what had happened back then, and he's like, obviously I didn't see her after that. I have no interest in her after that.
Right.
So he's like, I heard when she died. He's like, I knew it was odd that I was producing movies that was, started with her death kind of thing. But, he denies any involvement. And then, then they're driving back to the police station. And that's when they get a call from Sydney saying that she left the police station with the detective to go to Roman's birthday party at Milton's house.
Yes.
And so they go, okay, well, that's kind of odd. Okay, I guess we'll meet you at the party.
Yep.
So then they drive to the party and they get there, and there's like a sad, drunk Roman, the new Sydney in the movie, Ricky is there, and I think that's it, right? I think that's like everyone.
And Parker Posey.
Oh, and well, of course, yeah, Parker Posey is there.
Yes.
So that's like it, and then so they're just like, okay, where's Sydney at? They're like, what are you talking about? Sydney's not here. They're like,
maybe she's not here yet. Yeah.
They're like, oh, maybe she's on her way or something. Whatever. So they're like, kind of sort of hanging out. And what happens that they all get scared? Oh, they start getting calls, right? Or they get attacked.
Yeah. Roman gets, it's, they get phone calls. Roman gets very, very, very drunk. My movie on my birthday, it's ruined. So yeah, and they start being very suspicious of each other. They hear something like upstairs. They all separate out to investigate.
Now, yes, they do. I'll get into that in a minute. But yes, they split up immediately, trying to find out what's going on. So like Roman and Parker Posey go in the basement. Like Gale and Dewey are all in different directions. I think new Sydney and Ricky go
together,
in one direction. Blah blah blah. So yeah, they find Ricky. Ricky had gone into the room looking for Sydney. He saw Sydney come in this room, but he can't find her. So then they bring him downstairs, and then he gets attacked and killed.
Thrown out the second story window.
Right. Yeah, and they just leave him out in front by the pool, dead.
Yep.
And then Roman appears to be attacked in the basement.
They separate in the basement, which has alien movies that Lance Henriksen is actually in. He has props. There's an alien xenomorph down there, a whole bunch of props.
Right.
Which it really seems like it is an actual guy's house, because he has all these props. And it's funny because they had xenomorphs and stuff like that, were stuff that Lance was in. So I found it funny.
Right. He shows him looking in this coffin, and there's like a fake body in there. And then Parker Posey's at the top of the stairs because she won't actually go in the basement. And then later on, Gale goes looking for them. And so she goes in the basement, she opens up the same coffin, and then Roman's body is laying in the coffin.
With his throat slit. And then Parker Posey is hiding behind something else right next to it. Is he dead? I hope so.
Right. No questions are asked, and they immediately run away.
Right.
Yeah. So then so now they're all running around, and then they all gather up in the main dining room again, and they go, okay, yeah, so something's going on. Let's immediately split up again to try to look around and find what's going on. So that's when they decide that they're gonna call back Sydney. They're gonna star 69 the number or something.
Yeah.
And they call back the number, and a phone rings in a closet. They open up the closet, and there's this magical voice modulator
and the voice changer,
right? That can mimic anybody's voice.
Immediately knows how to use it,
right? And she presses all the buttons.
It has all our voices.
Yeah. So I don't know how she knew it had all of their voices, but yeah, she immediately knew they had all of their voices. It was a ghost face mask and costume and a knife in there.
Yep.
So they're like, okay, so something bad happened. Sydney was not here. We were tricked into coming here. And so then, yeah, Parker Posey gets killed, and then they get
because she's behind a two-way mirror-ish type deal, and Dewey shoots the stuff out. She's starting getting stabbed. She's stabbed, and then they get essentially both knocked. Gale and Dewey get knocked out.
Right. New Sydney dies too. So no one is left except for Dewey and Gale. And then they get essentially captured. And then the voice calls.
And then they get phone call. Yeah. Police station.
Yeah. The voice calls the police station and says that I have your friends. You got to come here. Or I'm going to kill them. While she's in the police station, she finds a file on the cop's desk. Patrick Dempsey. What's his name? Kincaid.
Yeah.
She finds a file on her desk, or on his desk, about her, and it's like everything about her life, and newspaper articles, and pictures and reports and stuff. And they were kind of alluded earlier in the movie that Dewey was trying to hide that file from someone that was trying to get the information, like before any of these killings happened. So again, it's kind of implied that, like, oh, now the cop is a suspect because she found this thing. So she goes to the house. She sees them tied up. There's like standoff.
Well, she gets a phone call saying, "Hey, here's a metal detector run over your body to make sure you don't have any guns." She has a gun. So she has to throw it away. Throw it to the side of the pool.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she like tries to untie them, and then I don't know, something happens to where she stops, and then she gets threatened, and then she tries untying them again, and then she gets chased.
Right. And they found out, there's always rumors sprinkled throughout the party. Roman's 30th birthday party was sprinkles like, I heard Milton has some secret theater somewhere inside the house.
Right.
And Roman was essentially trying to find it at one point in time. So yeah, she gets, Kincaid shows up. He seems very, very, very suspicious as well. He's just kind of there. And then she gets chased, and she ends up in the theater, the hidden theater.
Right.
And then there's her mom in the shitty movies being projected on the screen. She's locked in there. Gail and Dewey are trying to get in. You hear their voices, trying to find a way to get in because it's kind of essentially locked. And then we get our big reveal.
Right.
Ghostface comes out, and dun dun dun, it's Roman, her half brother.
Right.
Because one of those nights of cocaine and orgies, her mom got pregnant, and he was an offspring. And so we have a little bit potential of a retcon that he was the catalyst for all this, that he went looking for his mom before the events of her mom's murder. And then he convinced Billy and Stu to do the killing. Like, oh, she didn't want me,
Well, yeah,
he did not want me. I'm your son.
Right. Well, yeah, he says he went to her house to talk to her, and she like told him to go away.
Right. That was a different life.
Right. Like, that's a different life. I don't want any part of that. Like, go away.
Yep.
And they're trying to explain that that's why she was like promiscuous or whatever, was because she never got over the trauma that the whatever kind of implied gang rape at this party was, and that's why she was the way she was.
Very implied gang rape.
Oh, yes.
So then they have a show off, and Roman shoots Sydney. She goes down after she shoots him a couple times, and he's like shows that she has a bulletproof vest on. That's why he's able to take all these hits. She gets shot, and he goes and like he hears Gail and Dewey trying to break in. He's trying to figure out what to do, and he looks over where he shot Sydney, and she's missing. She pulled the Ghostface move. And eventually, she's like, "I shot you." She's like, "Aha, we think alike. Bulletproof vest."
Right. We must be related. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
right. Because there's guns. You
go to a dangerous place with the bulletproof vest on. Yeah, that means you're related.
With a gun.
Idiots.
Yes. So then she ends up stabs him with like one of those ice picks from like the old school like ice buckets that you'd have with like your bourbons and your drink cart, right?
Yep.
And then Dewey and Yale eventually get in, and Dewey starts shooting. He gets up because of one last scare. Steve says, "Head, Dewey, head." Then he shoots him in the head, and he's dead. And then it's all of them meeting up for a movie at her house. Kincaid's okay, even though he got shot. He has a sling on, and she leaves the gate to her driveway open.
The front door.
Showing that she is
the front door she leaves open.
And the gate.
Well, I mean, yeah, she does leave the gate open, and that I understand, but she leaves the front door open, man. Like, you're letting all the bugs in the house.
I know.
What are you doing? Close the door.
So, so she proving that she is free. The trilogy is at an end.
Right.
That's not.
Well, again, yeah. So anyway, for me, for this movie, the funny part was I thought I had seen it before. And then, again, when we were talking about, we were going to do it this week, and I'm like, hey, I've seen Scream 3. And I was sitting there trying to remember it. And I was like, that's a blank. I don't remember anything. Either this movie was completely forgettable. I mean, that happens sometimes. Like what was that new, there's like Jurassic World, and then there was like the second one. Remember we were talking about watching it, and I was like, I don't think I've seen it. I have no memory of seeing this movie. And you explained it to me, and I was like, oh, I have seen it. Oh man, it was like my mind just purged it. Like it was so bad. My brain was just like, I will never need this information again. I'm purging it. I was like, maybe Scream 3 was that, right? But if I start watching it, I will know immediately if I've seen it before.
Right.
Yeah, I started watching it, and I'm like, 5 minutes in, I'm like, nope. I have not seen this before. There's no memory of this. So I was shocked. Like, for years, I thought I had seen that movie, and apparently I haven't. So
we've noticed this quite a bit in doing this stuff, right?
Yeah.
That we've thought we've seen.
Well, again, like I thought I saw Reanimator, and I did not see Reanimator. I saw the other movie starring the exact same people based on the other H.P. Lovecraft story. So
yes,
same director, same time period, same actors, different movie.
Yes. So that means you didn't see this in theaters.
No,
obviously. So this came out February 4th of 2000. So I was a couple days older than 15 and a half. Now, I'm trying to remember if I saw this movie because where I live, they ID'd you. And I'm trying to remember if my buddy was working at the movie theater at the time where we were allowed to see R-rated movies. I think I saw this in theaters. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure I did. But I go, okay, this is the trilogy fatigue when I first saw this. Now, we can get into this. Now, this was written by someone completely different.
Yeah.
Still directed by Wes Craven, but written by not Kevin Williamson, the writer of the first two. And honestly, I think it shows.
Honestly, the cracks were showing in the second one. If I'm going to be truthful, the crack was showing in the first one. The second one was built on a crumbling foundation, and the third one is just like a bunch of 2x4s slapped on top of a pile of rubble. In my mind, that's how I see it.
Now, so like I said, I probably saw it the first time. Literally, 23 years and a month ago at this point of recording, right? I thought at the time it wasn't very good because, quite honestly, the acting in this was atrocious. That was my first thought. Now, this being your fresh pair of eyes 23 years after it came out, what were your first thoughts on this movie?
My first thoughts are going to be one of my low points, and I'll just say that. What the hell happened to Courtney Cox's hair? My God, it's horrible. It was terrible in the first one. They fixed it. Looked good in the second one. It looks terrible in this one. They cut her bangs like they're like an inch long. She's like trying to have like a Betty Page cut, but it's like too short and too raggedy looking. I mean, she ends up looking like a corpse. It's like whoever is doing her makeup, it's just like this weird corpse paleness, which I'm usually a fan of, but not in this case. It is just not cool at all. It looks terrible. It looks bad.
Maybe because she was afraid to go out, she did her own hair and makeup.
I don't know. Whoever the hairstylist was in Scream 2 did not return for Scream 3 because it is bad. It's bad news. Neve Campbell's hair is only slightly worse. It's mostly okay. But it's only slightly worse than the second one. Still peak perfection in the second one, I think.
Yeah.
But no, watching this movie again, it's like that meta campy bullshit gets turned up even higher in this one. And they're like,
very much so.
Yeah, they're like,
they lean hard into it.
And it's like, oh yeah, like, oh, ha ha ha, look, we're making fun of the movie industry. And again, these movies, they just kind of piss me off because, like, unless you're like in the movie industry or like follow it closely enough to know all this bullshit exists, like, you're stroking yourself off. You know what I mean? Like, the normal person does not know, like how things are made. You know what I mean? It's like nobody wants to know how hot dogs are made. Nobody wants to know how a movie gets made. They just want to watch the movie.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make like a meta joke about movie making. And again, a lot of movies do this. It's hard to make one behind the scenes. I've seen some that are good, and they're usually period pieces. They're usually not like common contemporary versions of what Hollywood is. It's usually like old Hollywood or something.
Right.
That do it well. And like anything that does this, again, they fall heavy on the cameos, heavy on the campy comedy stuff. Like, it's just, again, the whole thing is just bad. It just hurts my feelings watching it, and I don't like it. I was just kind of bored while it was happening, and just like, stop stroking yourself off. Just get over it. Just tell the story. I don't care about the Hollywood fucking friends you have. It's just annoying.
Well, I think at this point in time, they brought slashers back. We had a short revival, and this was the end of the slashers. While Scream revitalized it, I think Scream 3 killed it.
Well, again, this was, and it was before Scream 3 came out, but it was right around this time period where I was so tired of horror movies. And again, I don't dislike Scream 1. I don't even really dislike Scream 2, but I think they started this path, right? They started the path. I think it's like page one of what went wrong with horror movies in the late 90s and early 2000s is Scream. Scream isn't a bad movie. I think it just made people want to make bad movies. They again go, okay, Scream did it. Like, let's do it funnier. Let's do it better, right? Like, we can do it without nudity because Scream did it without nudity, and let's do it without swearing because I think Scream could be made without swearing, just stuff like that. Like, all of these things, they just like pushed it in this goofy direction, and I think it just totally knocked horror movies off course for like a decade. And I think Scream, Scream is not the only movie that did. I'm not blaming everything on Scream. I'm just saying Scream was the big movie of that time period that I think they focused on, and that's why they started making these bad movies moving forward. And I think Scream 2 was the next step in that. So when they were like, oh, look, we're going in the right direction. Scream 2 is going in the campier, goofier direction. We're going to keep following that line. And by the time Scream 3 comes out, like, Scream 3 is just like an afterthought. There's so many bad movies that are out by this point in time that Scream 3 being bad doesn't surprise anyone.
Right. I think to your point is you're correct that the formula was there, and then this gave the rise to the PG-13 horror movie craze.
Right.
Of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
That survived until Saw in 2005.
Right. Yeah.
All of a sudden, that we have Eli Roth, we have James Wan, we have these people going, okay, horror movies are crap. We need to bring this back to the glory days of the 80s with the gore factor, the torture porn. And they went in the complete opposite direction because of the groundwork that Scream and Scream 2 laid out. Other people picked on and made PG-13 horror movies. I'm not saying there's bad PG-13 movies. I'm saying they're generally not good.
Yeah, they pull punches. They're afraid to tell real interesting stories. They just tell recycled garbage cliche stories. But they try to like put whatever's fun at the time or popular at the time in it to make it seem like it's better.
Yes. Well, because, I think we saw the same thing, but Friday the 13th was a ripoff of Halloween. And they went in the opposite direction, though, for Scream.
Right.
They were I Know What You Did Last Summers and all that stuff tried to be Scream without being Scream and failed at it.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Scream again, started as a parody, but kept that meta-ness, right? They tried to keep to the formula, but mix it up a little bit, right?
Yeah,
mix it up enough to keep you guessing. But they followed the formula, and they were very honest about following the formula. And I think a lot of these other movies, they tried to do that, but they didn't want to be honest about it. So they tried to like pretend like they were smarter than that, and of course they were not, and it just failed. And again, the whole genre went off the rails. For like I said, it was probably about a solid decade. And then when it came back, it overcorrected.
Yes.
We got the Hostel. We got that's when like all of the crazy foreign movies started getting crazy. Like all the French horror movies that were like getting banned and stuff. All that stuff happened because
High Tension, all that. Right. Yeah.
High Tension, was it like Martyrs and there's other ones, but yeah, there's like these crazy French movies that like the French people were like, wow, this is too far, and they usually go further than we do.
Yes.
And it was like it overcorrected so hard because there was nothing good coming out of the horror genre. It was just all this like cheesy, like kind of YA versions of horror movies. And so again, everybody was overcorrecting. And it's like, then it was like, oh, okay, let's tone it down a bit. And then it got back on track. And I don't think it really got back on track until like 2010, 2012.
Well, we had to get past the torture porn.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It overcorrected. I get it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying like Hostel, I watched it once. Enjoyable enough. Do I want to watch it again? No.
Are we going to?
Yes. I mean, we probably will. I'm just saying, like, is that a movie that I go, I'm going to sit down and watch Hostel? No. I watched it. I appreciate it. I don't know if I want to watch it again. But again, that's what it was. Again, it's an overcorrection. You get all that PG-13. It's like, again, sending a young girl to Catholic school.
Yep.
Right. You're going to repress them to the point where they're going to explode as soon as they're like actually exposed to the real world. And that's what happened. Is the horror genre was being sheltered from the rest of the world for a while, and then when it finally came back into its own, it blew up.
Oh yeah. So any highlights for you?
Highlights. Whew. I don't know. I don't know if there's any highlights. Lance Henriksen. I liked him. He was barely in it, but I liked him being in it.
Buddy.
Patrick Warburton. I like Patrick Warburton. He was good. He was pretty funny for the 2 minutes he was in the movie.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. I thought Neve Campbell did a good job. She wasn't really in it all that much.
No.
I mean, the twist in this one, you can't see it coming because they're making up stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're making up things that are information that no one has and is not revealed in the course of the movie. So again, there's no way you can guess.
Do you okay, so Randy comes back in the VHS tape by his little sister who talked about the rules of a trilogy.
Okay, that is on my list as a low point. So,
but they always talk about that a trilogy is supposed to be a return to form. That it is supposed to be you go back, if everything you thought you knew, you don't know, throw out the window. It doesn't matter. They didn't return to Woodsboro, but they did. They tried to end cap this as a full trilogy. That everything's done. The guy who started this all is now dead.
Right, but I mean, they already had the killers of her mom.
Yes.
They already had it. They admitted to it. There was no like somebody convinced me to do it. No, there's none of that. This is just made up stuff. I mean, I understand that when you do it for a trilogy, you have to do made up stuff because you don't want people guessing it. You don't want people seeing it coming. I get all that. I'm just saying that this isn't a movie you could have guessed. I like movies. I mean, I rarely ever guess the right person. I mean, I'm not good at figuring that stuff out. It's fun for me to try. I'll have theories and I'll tell people theories. And again, they're very rarely ever correct, but I like my theories, but I'm thinking about them. This movie is not one that you can have a theory about. It's like, okay, again, it's you're being force fed these people as suspects in like one scene. And then the next scene they're exonerated. And Roman is one of those people.
Yeah.
Roman is when Jenny McCarthy, his character, dies, she gets called into the office because Roman calls a meeting with her.
Yes.
Right? She gets there. There's like somebody else there doing a makeup test, and then they leave. And then she talks to Roman on the phone. And again, that they talk to, with the voice changer thing, like this is very easily done. And Roman comes in, he's interviewed by the police. They say right there in the interview, we checked your phone. You did not make that call.
Yes.
Right. So he is exonerated right there. Right.
Yep.
At no point does he ever get talked about as a suspect again. I think really the next scene he shows up in is when he's drunk at the party. Like, I don't think he exists from the time he's interviewed by the police after Jenny McCarthy's murder until he's drunk at that party. I don't think he exists.
Well, he was at Milton's office saying, "Hey, I'll see you at the party. Don't cut the cake though."
Right. But that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
So like you can't predict that. And again, it's just kind of frustrating. I like, if it's going to be a whodunit movie of like, oh, who is the Ghostface now? I would rather it be someone that you could guess. There's kind of sort of clues, or again, in 2, it's like, oh, who's the guy that's not there, right? Again, and I picked it. Like I said, that's why I was very excited that I picked the right person, because again, I very rarely ever do. That's like I'm just not good at predicting it. And I overthink it. I was like, oh, this would be cool if this and this and this happened. But in reality, it's just something. It's like dumb blunt object number 1 is why it's this person, and I think past it too often.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to think about.
Yeah. Highlights for me is, I think it should have been a Return to Woodsboro. They tried it a little bit. The acting from all our survivors are pretty on point. And I think why your low point exists is because they realized they screwed up by killing Randy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, you want me? I'll just go no now. Whatever.
That's why. Yeah, it's the lead up to your low
okay.
point.
I'll just go no now. Okay, like this is how many years after the second movie, right?
3
years. Okay, they've been dead for 3 years. His sister has been holding onto this tape. You look at the tape; it looks like she's been wiping her ass with it. It is dirty as hell. It is nasty. It's obviously been used a lot.
Yeah.
Somebody knew it was there. Yep. And she just conveniently showed up to hand it to them exactly when they needed to see it. Like, how stupid. Again, it's like akin to like her walking back to her campus without stopping at the police station. It's like they just conveniently have this. So like he filmed this before his death, assuming that his death is going to be in the sequel, that there's going to be a third one 3 years later. Like he somehow psychically knows this. It's so stupid. And again, and then they waste your time having him fight with his off-screen roommate on the tape. Like, why are you wasting my time further by stretching this out more than it has to be? Like, just get this over with. And then he's talking about the stupid rules of the trilogy. And then what's the rules of the trilogy? There are no rules. Thanks, Randy. Was that really you had to bring in this stupid tape to tell us that there are no rules? Like, what's the fucking point?
Because they realized they messed up killing Randy.
I know they messed up. I'm just saying, like, what's the point, dude? You already messed up. He's dead. We're gonna bring him back in with this stupid VHS tape from a character, her sister, that just disappears immediately afterwards. What's the point? Why? Just wasting my time.
Yeah.
What's another? Obviously, I already talked about Courtney Cox's hair is horrible in this movie. It is just bad. I don't know what they were doing. The 3 is they are constantly splitting up.
Yes.
In the house, they're in the house, the final house, right? Like bad things are happening. People are already dying, and they keep going. Let's split up. Again, they do it like 4 times. So they're like, oh, people are already dying. Let's split up to search the house. Like, you've already searched the freaking house 3 times. Why are you doing this again? It's just pointless, like stretching out suspense by being idiots. It's like watching a Scooby-Doo movie. Like, okay, everybody, you're already all together. You're in the dining room. The front door is right there. Leave the house. Walk out the door. Call the police. What are you doing? Why are you continuing to search this house when you know something bad is in here? You know, again, they have the cell phone. He tried to call the phone, so they not only have Dewey's cell phone, they have the cell phone that he used to call them, pretending to be Sydney, right? They have two phones. Why aren't they, one, leaving to call the police with those phones? Two, why aren't they calling each other while they're split up? So stupid.
Yeah.
Just so stupid. There's so many huge plot holes in this movie. It's like insulting.
Okay, so this is ironically the issue that they had with Stab 3 is the issue they had with Scream 3. They took that frustration and wrote it into the movie. Because of what happened to Scream 2, they actually had multiple scripts that existed. And I think people have been on record saying they didn't know what script. They would take stuff from one script and stuff from another script. So it was all compiled together to make it so you would never know there's multiple different endings. And I think it shows.
Yeah, it does. I mean, again, it's all over the place. It has the same disease that 2 does. Is to where like they're leading up to a place, and when they get to that last place, it just like falls apart. There's like stuff happening all over the place. Like when Sydney and Roman are like having their confrontation, like how many doors does Dewey and Gale have to try to break into before they find the right one? I mean, they try to break in 4 different doors when you can, again, they can hear them talking the entire time. So like, they're obviously right outside. Like how do you not, I don't know. I don't get it. It's a complete waste of your time.
Yeah. So I think this movie was plagued with all this crap, and it shows.
Yeah.
They still made it. Another little point, I don't know if you noticed it, but Sydney uses the code 1228 on both her gate and her alarm system. She uses the same code.
It's 1288.
1288. But she still uses the same one.
Yes, she does.
Regardless. I go, okay, that's dumb.
It's probably her birthday or something.
I don't know, but it's still dumb.
I don't know either.
And I was watching that, and then this rewatch, I go, she's using the same goddamn code. This is stupid. If you're you paranoid, you're not gonna use the same code.
Well, if you're that paranoid, if somebody knows the code, it doesn't make a difference if this code is the same. But
I just thought it was stupid. And quite honestly, the new Sydney is she was awful in this movie. The person that played her seemed awful in this movie.
And she's been in something that was recent, and she was pretty good in. But she's English.
It's Emily Montgomery or something like that.
Yeah.
Mortimer. Emily Mortimer.
Yeah.
Is her name.
She was in something fairly recently that was like pretty famous. I can't remember what it was.
But I'm saying in this movie, she is awful.
Oh, annoying. Yes. Yeah, she definitely is.
And Parker Posey, I really don't like her, but she was at least, this is probably her best movie in my opinion. Yeah. Emily Mortimer, I know you're looking her up too, because I always forget who she is. I always confuse her with someone else, but she was in Relic.
Right.
It's one of the few things I actually know her in is Relic.
I can't remember like what movie I'm thinking of her being in.
Lars the Real Girl.
No, The Newsroom. The Newsroom is the show I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
As I knew, I was like, it was a show, and she was like the straight person in the show, and I'm trying to remember it was. The Newsroom. The Newsroom is the show. I really like that show, and I liked her in it.
She was awful in this movie.
Well, yeah, and again, to be fair, she was barely in it. She's really only in it for like to be a possible suspect because they showed her like in a bathroom stall with the ghost face mask and a knife. And, and they say, well, "What do you have that?" And she's like, "Oh, I just took it as a souvenir." Again, she was like one of those like possible
you take
suspects.
It or you steal it. Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure in one of the scripts, she was the bad guy. I'm sure.
I mean, I think the other low point is this movie tried to one up its reveal. Like it always has to go bigger.
And
I think it imploded on itself trying to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's like a victim of its own success. Like Scream was good. Like nobody saw that twist coming at the end. And so now every other iteration of Scream, they have to have an equally interesting twist, But again, they're like bringing out ridiculous stuff. Like it's Billy Loomis's mom who was barely mentioned in the first movie. And the only thing she did was leave. But now she's coming back for revenge. And of course, they couldn't just be her. It's some random killer she met on the internet and somehow knew would be able to be convinced to kill people on her behalf. Oh, okay.
So, what you're saying is M. Night Shyamalan loved the twist in 2 and 3 so much that he made his own twists.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And that's I wish Randy wasn't killed. I love him to be an actual character. He was an interesting character. And that we still have these 3 moving forward. And Kincaid. This is effectively shut down. And there was talks of this, what we're calling the pseudo trilogy for this has been in the talks well before Wes Craven died. He wanted to do like another trilogy. Now, luckily, he was able to make number 4. But that Scream 4 is the last Wes Craven Scream movie, obviously.
Yeah.
So this is your first time watching it. I've watched this numerous times. How many stabs out of 10 would you give this movie?
Jeez. I don't know. I'll just say 3.5. 3.5 stabs out of 10.
3.5? Yeah, this goes down to a 5 for me. Yeah, I know you haven't seen any other Screams. I know we're fixing that next week for a recording. And I can't tell you everything because you don't know at this point in time. But I can tell you right now that so far, of the 5 I've seen, this is by far my lowest one of enjoyment in the Scream franchise. I like Scream 4 and 5. So I'm hopeful for 6. We'll see. The thing that gets me with Scream 6 is, we know the settings, New York City, and they're like, this is the first time the Scream franchise has been outside of Woodsboro. I go, no. 2, technically, people are saying it's Ohio because all the cars have Ohio license plates, which is counterproductive because Dewey never left Woodsboro until he went to LA. But Scream 3 isn't Woodsboro. So how can they say this is the first time that they leave Woodsboro? It's not. We already had 2 that were outside of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like 2 and 3 were both completely outside of it. Like,
yeah. I mean, LA is a pretty big town.
Well, I mean, they had a set of the town in LA, but it's still, they were in LA. It was a fake version of the town. 2 does not have their town at all.
Correct.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they mean by that because that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know either. Other than mean it's in an actual city versus the outskirts. But I'm considering LA to be a big city. Right.
Yeah. I mean, LA as a city didn't play a part in the third one.
No, it's Hollywood.
Right. So like, I guess if the city plays a part in the movie, like if it matters, they're in a city, maybe, I guess. I don't know.
Don't know. We'll know within a week.
Yeah.
All right, why don't you bring us out then?
All right. Join us next week as we continue into the Scream metaverse, concluding with Scream 6. Well, maybe concluding with Scream 6. There may be Scream 7, 8, and 9.
No.
Does this pseudo trilogy hold a candle to the original? Stay tuned for next week. And remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
This has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.
Good night.